Welcome back to a new deep dive video, and on this occasion is pigments. This video is like a crash course. At the description or the timeline you have all the chapters. You can learn about something today, skip a section, or maybe just come back a different day to keep learning. I will show you all the different parts of the synthesizer. One thing I'm not gonna do is gonna be the sequencer. I'm gonna show you this on a different video. If you like all of this, please like the video, and this channel is supported by viewers only. If you want to buy me a coffee to say thanks and help the channel keep going on, you can. You have links at the description for PayPal, YouTube thanks, and Patreon. I guess we need to start on the first view, which is the simple view, the simplified view. Here you can select and edit limited params of the oscillator engines. You can select a different engine, like the analog, the wavetable, and on each engine you can change something about that engine. You can do both engines, maybe on this one select the wavetable, and just change the position or the volume, and something about that. Then you have the utility, which is not an engine, but right here you get two noises and a sub-generator that you can turn on from here directly. Now, whatever you generate right here will go to the filters. By default, the filter 1 will go into the 2. They're not in parallel, right? Filter 1, you do something, you play something, you filter, and then whatever comes out of the 1 will go to the filter number 2, so you can do something else to that sound. Now, you cannot change the routings from here, but you can change it from this view, from the advanced view. Then whatever that comes out from the engine and goes to the filters will go to the effects. And right here you have the A, the B, and then aux. So if you go to the effects tab, the advanced tab, for each slot you have access to 3 different effects. So let me just maybe go to, I don't know, a different... I'm going to go to this patch. So if I go to the A, I have 3 different effects. So this means that on the play mode, if I go to the slot A, I can just change the first effect, the second one, and the third one. So this is giving you access to the dry and the wet of each of the effects. This is what you can do from here. Same thing for the B, and same thing for the aux. And we will talk about the effects much later. But this is what you can do from the simplified view. Then at the bottom you have the amp envelope. So this will control how the volume goes out of the synthesizer. So if I wanted to quickly change the envelope, I can do it from here. And you have controls over the attack, decay, sustain, and release. Now, of course, if you go to the advanced tab, you have a lot more control right here. But we're gonna get there much later. So this, again, is the simplified view. You have access to your macros, but you do have access to your macros wherever you go. So, you have the same controls. Now, one tiny little advice is that you must not disregard this view. I know that most want to go to this section and try to make adjustments right here. But, the play view, it's super useful. Because maybe I just need to change, I just need to change the course. So I just go right here and just do it. I don't need to go to the overwhelming view, right? You can do it from here. Same, with the envelopes and the, the filters, even with the modulators. So, don't disregard this view. I'm going to go to a default patch so we can all start from the same place. And we need to discuss the different engines, and this will take a while. Now, my advice would be for you to watch the analog, and then watch the wavetable, and then the sample, and then the harmonic in order, because the analog will give you some, some controls, and the wavetable will take some of the controls are just completely the same, so it's going to be a little bit easier to understand. Same thing happens with the sample engine and the wavetable engine, and same thing with the harmonic. So maybe you should start first with the analog and then just go to the other ones. So let's start easy. For each oscillator, you have a volume. And for now, if I play it, it's going to be pretty harsh. So I'm going to go down on the cutoff and maybe go to the send level and add a little bit of reverb just to make it a little bit nicer, right? So you have on the analog engine 3 different oscillators. Each oscillator can control its own volume. So if I go to the 2, and the 3. All the different oscillators can do the same waveforms. So sine wave, triangle, then saw down, saw up, and then pulse. Only the pulse can change its width and the triangle The other ones cannot change the width. If you go to the left side of each oscillator, the first one can change the course. I can tune it down, or I can tune it up. And by double clicking, you can go back to center. If I go to the other ones, we can do the same with the other ones, but the other ones can fine tune one up, one down, and you can use semitones or you can go in hertz. And this is again completely up to you. The oscillator 3 can do the same thing that we can do on the 2, right? So we can change the course and the fine tune. Double click and go back to the center. Now notice that right here, if I go up, it's gonna go really aggressively. Maybe I want to go in small values, so you can do it by holding the right click. Notice that it will go on very small chunks or tiny little values, let's say. So you can really fine tune it. One thing that you cannot do is to change or to fine tune the oscillator number 1. You cannot do it. You can only fine tune it with the global tune. And since we are here, if I bring the volume of the 2 and the 3 and maybe do something else like that. There you go. I can change the course of all the 3 oscillators at once. Double click to go back to the beginning, and then you can change the fine tune, but it's going to be for the 3 oscillators. You cannot change the 1. And then you have this tiny little option that calls drift. This, what will do, will give you a tiny little oscillator detune. So if I play, and I'm just tapping the keys, as you maybe can see right here. Just by doing up on drift, it will give you this detune. If I go really crazy, you know, it's gonna sound really detuned. And if I play some keys, again, it's gonna be really detuned. So this is really nice. So to get that analog type of imperfections when tuning, if I go to down, it sounds really different. Maybe if I do something like that, it gives you that, again, analog vibe. On each oscillator and then on the global section, you have a keyboard. This one, what will do, it will disconnect the keyboard from your main source control. And I'm going to show you this with maybe oscillator number 3. Yeah, why not? So if I play a key, it's going to play that tune. I'm playing a C, so I'm just playing the C. If I play a higher key, it's going to play that one. So it's just tracking my keyboard and playing whatever it is that I'm playing. If I toggle this off, now this oscillator will not listen to my instruction or whatever I'm playing. It will play at the fixed frequency. So right here, you can change the frequency with the coarse and the fine tune. But again, this oscillator is not listening to my keyboard anymore. And this is useful, so maybe you can have the maybe oscillator number 1 play at some position, and then this one will be fixed at the frequency. So now I could play at the top. The other oscillators will be tracking my keys, but the third one is just stuck on that frequency. Since I'm playing a C minor type of a scale, I have the root note always playing at the bottom. So, that's the plan. It's like, playing bagpipes. You have a fundamental frequency playing at the back, and then you play something else at the top. You can do this for the oscillator 3, you can do it for the 2, or you can do it for, the whole engine. Notice if I'm playing different keys, I'm always getting the same deal. At the bottom of this keyboard icon, and for now I'm just gonna double click to reset everything back to defaults. Maybe I'm gonna use oscillator number 1. So here you have this Q. This Q means quantize. If I press it, you have this tiny little pencil right? Now for now, I'm gonna just toggle this off, and I'm gonna go to maybe gonna click this, and we are gonna talk about how we can assign a modulation to something much later. So I'm using an LFO to modulate the frequency of all the engine. And as you can see, it's going up and down really smoothly. Goes up and down. If I go to Q, it sounds a little bit different. Now the transition, how we detune it, is going to be quantized. The trick right here is that you need to select what you want to quantize. If I remove all the black keys, it's only letting us play the white keys. So right here, we could even select maybe something like that. And it will only play the keys. Well, let us hear, the keys that belong to whatever scale that we select right here, or combination of keys. Doesn't have to be a scale. So this is why the quantize it's super useful. Clicking this, it will just disable and go back to the default. Now we know pretty much everything. We need to talk about the right side, and then this part we have right here. But also you have the sync. So when this one is on, this means that the oscillator 2, this one, the 2, it's hard sync to the oscillator number 1. And you get this hard sync sound, which is a very classic type of sound. So if I play something and both oscillators, remember this, the one, it's synced to the 2. So when I change this, nothing happens. And maybe I'm gonna go here. Notice that it's not. It sounds a little bit weird. So if I unsync, we hear the changing, or the oscillator 2 changing its tune. When they are sync, we get the oscillator sync sound. So, I could go down on this, maybe detune this one, and now maybe I'm gonna detune this one as well. You know what, I'm gonna go back to default on this. But the point is that now, what I can do, I can modulate this control, the course of the oscillator 2, and we can get that, oscillator sync sound. And the trick right here is that maybe we want to modulate this with something else. I could maybe go to an envelope, why not? And then change the envelope to have this again, oscillator sync sound. Now, tiny little trick for oscillator sync: when you separate the engines, the slave and the master, you're gonna get the cool tone. If both are on the same spot, you're not gonna get a super cool sound. You get this. Just, fine, but when you separate the oscillators, the shapes, even the frequency, you're gonna get a cool sound. Right, so this is what the oscillator sync, what you can do. It's a very classic type of effect. Back to the beginning, I'm gonna go here and just maybe use a saw. Now then at the right side, you have the output section. One thing that you need to be aware of is that all the different engines have the same output. You have the filter mix and the volume. If I go to Wavetable, filter mix, volume, then you have the same, and you have the same for all the engines. I'm gonna go back to the analog, and right here, what happens is that you can choose where to go. If this engine goes to the filter 1 or it goes to the filter 2. Notice it goes super bright. It is because in the filter 2 we have no filter. It's just going through without getting filter. But if I add a different filter, like, maybe, I don't know, something a little bit more. There you go, just a phaser. So now this engine is going to the filter 2 without going to the filter 1. So we can decide where we want to send it. Or maybe we want a little bit of both, or a combination. Now then, the question is, how will the filters get mixed, or how they will sum? Well, this is the filter routing. We're going to talk about this when we get to the filters. But right here, the main point is that you can't choose where to go, or when to send it. 1 or 2, or a combination of both. And this is your main output. So maybe if you have something right here and it's super loud, you can just fine-tune the overall volume of this engine with this control. Now then you have, and I'm gonna go down on all the oscillators, you have the noise. And I'm gonna, just disable the filter and remove everything, and maybe go down because it's just a little bit too noisy. So right here you have different noises. If you go down, it's more brown, let's say, type of noise. You don't have a lot of high frequencies, it's just super flat. As I keep going up, you get more high frequencies, less low frequencies. As I keep going up, you have more high frequencies and none of the super lows. So different shapes of noise. Each of the engines can do something like phase modulation or frequency modulation. They all can do different things. The analog one can do FM. So right here at the bottom, you have the modulator option and you have oscillator 3 and then noise. So this means that the oscillator 3 can frequency modulate the 2 and the 1. I'm going to go up on the 1. And how can we frequency modulate? Well, first you will need to go up on this control and it will frequency modulate or FM the 2 and the 1. How? Well, again, with the oscillator 3. So if I detune the oscillator 3, it will affect the modulation. Maybe I'm gonna chop a little bit of the highs. And this again, it's something that you can modulate. Now, right now it's modulating both oscillators, the 1 and the 2. If I don't want to modulate the 2, well, just clicking here will disable the FM. And if I click this one, now we are not doing any FM. I'm gonna keep the 1. Now right now, maybe just both. So now we are using the 3 to frequency modulate the 1 and the 2. We can use oscillator 3 or we can use a combination of 3 and noise. If I go all the way to noise, we are just using noise. If I change the noise right here, that is using this noise to do the FM. And this is again something really cool that you can modulate and get some cool sounds. Why not? Now, maybe you're thinking, okay, so this is fine. I can use the 3 just to frequency modulate the 1 and the 2, but I wish we could do more. Well, you actually can. The modulator will always give you some default controls, but then if you click it, you have other options. In this case, it's going to be the engine 2, and all the different engines can do different things. If I go to the engine 2, we can use this engine, the 2, to frequency modulate the 1 and the 2 in the case of the analog. So maybe I can go here and select a wavetable, and right here, maybe select a triangle, why not? And I'm gonna go back, and now we are using that waveform. We can even sweep the position, and now the modulator, it's not the 3 anymore. It's gonna be the engine 2. You can change the pitch, select a different wavetable, and then sweep the wavetable. And now we have, a different world of possibilities. Now, one thing that you need to be aware of is that when you are using this engine as a modulator and you modulate or change these controls, you are indeed changing the engine number 2. So if I go position all the way up and go to the wavetable, the position is all the way up. If I change it from here, we are changing the position. Right, so we are listening now, the engine 2 going out and also modulating this oscillator, the analog 1, the oscillator engine 1 analog. So you need to be aware of this. Now, maybe you don't want to hear the engine 2. If I toggle this off, but I leave everything on, we lose the modulation. So you need to have it on in order to get that cross modulation. But if you don't want to hear what goes out of the engine 2, you can just go all the way down in volume. And now you're just using the engine 2 to cross-modulate. And not only that. Cool, right? So this is what you can do with this one. Now, we are pretty much done right here. I'm not going to do FM. I'm just going to go back to a standard saw. And right here at the bottom, you have more options. And you have unison, you have chord, and then you have super. So unison is just unison. You have the... It's very lonely, so we can detune, and if we detune, nothing happens. In order to detune, we need to add voices. As we add more voices, of course, you will get dense. You will get more dense. So maybe 3 voices, that's fine, and you can detune it. It will sound really detuned. Also notice that the sound goes really wide. This is because of the stereo. If I go down, you can still detune and have a unison, but with mono. For just, maybe go a little bit mono instead of full stereo, because it just goes really wide. Depends on what you want to do. Then you have the chord, and this, what it does, it will give you different chords. Right here you can select how many voices you will be playing. Let's say that we want to play 4, and I'm playing one single key, just one single key. And with the chord we can, play different chords. You will need to select them. You have a lot. Let's say I want to go to, again, maybe a sus or something like that. Why not? And then you have the same option of stereo and non-stereo. What else? You have this super, and this is the super saw type of mode. I'm gonna go down on the reverb, up on the cutoff, and I'm just using a saw. And I'm gonna turn off this super. If I play it, we can see that we have a saw. As soon as we turn it on, we can see that at the back we have like other tiny little saws showing up. There we go. And what this does is we'll add copies of the saw or the waveform, and it will blend the different copies of the saw at different phase position. And this is, super saw. The thing is that when they are just completely in phase or not detuned, you get this ugly sound. If you detune, you get the super saw type of sound, right? Which is really great. Now on the synthesizer, which is something that you don't get on maybe different synthesizers, you can only do a super saw with just a saw. But here, you can do it with a triangle, you can do it with whatever it is that you want. If you have more harmonics, it's gonna sound a little bit better, but you can do it with the other ones. If I change the shape of the triangle, that is that we can still do it. And with this, we are done with the analog engine. And okay, so let's talk about the wavetables. And first, let's cover the easy parts. Right here, yeah, a lot of the parts that you have right here are the same sections, the same controls that you have on the analog engine. For example, if I go to the wavetable, right here we have the tune. We can coarse, we can change the fine tune, we can unlink it from the keyboard, just like we did before, and we can use the quantize to select whatever it is that we want to quantize. If we go to the to the right side, you can change the routings of the filter. You can manage the volume of the main output of this engine, and you can also manage the volume of the wavetable. And since this is a wavetable, you can change the position and morph between the different waveforms of the wavetable. Now, right now, when you move the position, it's going to morph between the waveforms, but you can click here, and instead of morphing, you're going to be toggling between the different positions. Also, you have the 3D view, which is going to be this view, and you have the 2D view. Now, right here, if I go maybe here and just play something and I apply some modulation, we're going to talk about this, we can hear that something else is going on. We don't have this sine wave waveform. But if I go to the other view, we can see what's going on with the waveform. Alright, so, that's something to be aware when you work with the modulators right here at the bottom. In terms of waveforms, you have a lot of different waveforms you can choose from. You have all the different variations, different wavetables that you get from different versions of Pigments, and then you have some other ones. You can create your own directory by clicking on this icon, and you can import your own wavetables, which is always super important. And that's it, that's the wavetable. It's just pretty easy. Now, the other part of this wavetable engine is going to be the modulation that you have right here at the bottom. But before we go there, if you go to the left side, notice that you have the unison, you have the chord, and you have the super. So this is, again, the same thing that we get on the analog engine. But there's a tiny difference. The chord works pretty much the same. The super works pretty much the same. But then you have the unison, which you have the same controls, but now you have a phase control. So, and this actually, if I go maybe to a triangle, maybe something like that. If I play it, it is just a little bit punchy. As if I go to the other side, it's just smoother. Even if I go here, so the phase, what we'll do, it will just change the phase or just offset the phase of the different voices that you're adding. So depending on what you're doing, the effect is gonna be very obvious or not. For example, if I go maybe to a saw and keep the phase like that, we don't notice the difference a lot. So you're gonna really notice when you go up in voices and detune. But it's just a little bit smoother, a little more clicky, let's say. This is the only difference on this section. So then we need to talk about the rest of the Wavetable engine, and you do have a lot right here. You have a wave folding, you have a phase distortion, then you have phase modulation, and then you have FM and ring modulation. And I guess I'm going to start right here on this one, on the first one. So you have frequency and you have ring mod. If you go to the type, if you use linear or exponential, you're going to be doing FM. But if you go to ring mod, you're going to be using ring modulation. And this is pretty simple. I'm going to go to linear, and if you have something, maybe you're going to go to a sine wave. I'm going to go up. And as you do more, you're pretty much doing frequency modulation. And I'm going to add a little bit of reverb. So as you might know, when you do frequency modulation, you're pretty much using a modulator to modulate whatever waveform that you have right here. Which modulator? Well, it's going to be this one. With this waveform, this volume, not the volume, but the ratio that you have right here. So if I'm doing some modulation and I change the waveform, we're going to be getting a different type of modulation because we are using a different waveform, and we can change the ratio right here. Now we're going to talk about the modulator in a minute. So right here, the only thing that we care is that we can do frequency modulation, and we are doing linear. And the main difference with linear is that it sounds a little bit more musical, let's say. If I go to exponential, it sounds a little bit more atonal, so you need to fine-tune the control right here, the amount. If I maybe go here to linear, and if I play something and then I change it to, something else, notice it always sounds musical. But if I go to exponential, it sounds a little bit atonal, so you need to fine-tune it. But that's actually the point of this, just to get something a little bit different. Now what else? If I go to ring mod, then we are on the ring modulation territory. And for this, since we have a sine wave and we have a sine wave, this sounds good when we add or we separate the modulator from the carrier right here. So if I choose maybe a square wave and go down in tune, then we're going to be getting something, a little bit more tasty, let's say. And that's it pretty much, right? So you have FM and then you have a ring mod. I'm going to go back to defaults on the modulator and ratio of 1, of course, but then you have the phase modulation. And this is very similar to frequency modulation, but it's just a little bit different. If I do something like that, it sounds almost the same. But as soon as we start changing the phase, in this case, we're going to start getting different tones. Maybe if I do a little bit more, and if we change the shape, because we have more harmonics, just it sounds a little bit different. So this one on the phase mod, this section, the re-trigger source, it's kind of important. And notice that you have two main categories. You have key press, and then you have oscillators. This means how the phase will re-trigger when, when we are using it. Now the first is going to be key, which means that the phase, and I'm going to be doing something, maybe I'm going to go to sine wave and just keep the ratio on 1. It means that every time that we play, the phase is re-triggering. And this is why we have the keyboard. Every time we play a key or we have incoming MIDI, it will reset. If I go to random, now it doesn't care about us, playing the key. If I do the same, I want you to notice the difference. That we have a different tone. Sometimes it's going to be, it has a different tone, right? And you can see this part of the waveform. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. So it's random. It's a little bit, inconsistent. So if I go to key and I do the same, it's the same always. It's because it's resetting every time I play a key. The other one is random. So we are going to be getting that inconsistency. And that's, part of the trick. So then we have something different. On this one, the key press is deciding when it's just, re-triggering. But then we have the oscillators. Now the oscillators will decide when or how the phase will re-trigger. And we have a completely different sound. And if we play different keys, if I go up and just play lower or higher keys, it will sound very different. Even if we change the pitch or we change the tune of the modulator, it will always change. The one that is deciding how to re-trigger is the main oscillator. That's why it says self. But then you have the mod oscillator. So this one is the one deciding when the phase resets. And on this one, notice that you can change the phase. If I go to self, you can change the phase, but in random, you cannot. So all of this depends on what you want to do. This is super fun to just, maybe choose a different waveform, a different ratio, and modulate this control, maybe with some effects or something else. You can get something really, really cool. I'm going to double click to go back to the beginning, and I'm going to be using on key, and I'm going to go all the way down. So if I go back, we get this sine wave. So now it's time to talk about the modulator, because it's really important. The modulator will affect all the different mods that you have right here at the bottom. On the modulator side, if I go to FM, because I really like it, I can use a sine wave, or I can use a triangle, the saw, ramp, square, and then you have different type of noises. Cool, right? So, the most common waveforms. You can change the ratio, just like any, good FM. But you do have different options. And of course, you can change you can fine tune one up or one down. Now, you can change ratios, but you also have other options. You can do absolute, which is going to be semitones. The other one is ratios, not semitones. And then you have something that says the relative. So if I do something like that, maybe I'm going to go to, I don't know, maybe 6. And you know what? I'm going to do 7. There you go. And I'm going to do this. If I change the course, notice it goes atonal. And it's because we are changing the carrier and we are not changing the modulator. This one is stuck on 7 semitones, but the other one goes to a different tune. So this is the absolute. It doesn't care about the main course. But if I go here and I do relative, when I change the course, it will also offset the main tune that we have right here. So they are synced. And the last option is going to be fixed, which means that you will be doing hertz. If I go all the way down, it sounds like an LFO, right? So as I go up, we do more, and then we get into oscillator rates. This is something pretty common, with any kind of modulator, especially FM. But the main point right here is that you use this to frequency modulate or to modulate all these different modulators. Another thing that you can do is to click here and choose a different modulator. And we kind of already know this. We discussed this on the analog. We can choose the Engine 2 as a modulator. And on this, if I go to analog, we have this and this interface, which is going to be the FM amount, whatever it is that we are doing on the analog. I can even go to a different wavetable and notice that we have the same thing that we have on the analog. We can change the waveform, but yeah, essentially we can use the Engine 2 as a modulator. I'm going to go back to the main modulator and just go back to defaults. I'm going to go down in the volume of this engine and I'm going to turn off the Engine 2. If I play something and I'm doing it so, we get nothing. If I go up in the volume of the modulator, we can hear the modulator and everything that we are doing with this modulator. And this is why you have two volumes, one for the wavetable and one the main output is because we can hear or listen to the modulator. And right here, you can just change it to something else and even use it to output something. That's the plan. But if you don't want to, go out on this one, you go down in volume and it will still be used as a modulator. Okay, so back to defaults. One thing that you need to know is that the frequency mod and the ring mod and the phase mod, they completely depend on the modulator. Whatever it is that you do on the modulator will affect the phase mod and the frequency mod. The phase transform, which is the phase distortion, and the wave folding, they don't care about the modulator unless you move these knobs right here at the bottom. And that's the main difference between the first two and the second two, is that they care or they do not care about the modulator. And right here, these ones are pretty simple. Now that we know this, the first two, these ones are just piece of cake. So right here, if I go to wave folding, I'm going to be, and you know what, I'm going to go to the auto view. If I go up, we can see that we are folding it. How? Well, depends on the shape. We can use one, we can use two, and maybe I'm going to chop a little bit of the frequencies. We can use the three, and we are just, doing wave folding. That's pretty much it. Now on the other side, the phase transform is going to be a little bit different. We can change the pulse width, but also depends on the type. If I click on the type, we have a lot, we have a lot more. We can skew it. We can, make it round. Just, we are just pretty much like changing the sine wave to square. And then, again, you have different modes. And right here, you need to go and explore. And you can fractalize. This is what is pretty cool. So like I said before, the phase transform or phase distortion and wave folding, they don't care about the modulator. For example, if I do this and I do this, and I change the ratio or change the fine or do something on the modulator, nothing's happening. They only care when you move this knob. And this, what it does, it will modulate the modulator, which is, again, super cool. And now, since I'm allowing to modulate this, whatever I do right here will affect the effect, will affect this. If I go to the other one, I can do a little bit of this, and now I can affect it with the modulator. And again, like I said before, all of this is just super fun. If I maybe do something like this, something a little bit more static, and it's a cool sound, but it's fun when you start modulating the different effects with the modulators and the envelopes, LFOs, and functions and everything else. But I'm going to be using it later. We are not there yet. So to learn this and to make it simple, I'm going to divide this into different sections. This one is going to be the sample selection. Then you have the edit sample. Then you have the sample playback. And then in main, you have the grains section. So when you're here, the first thing that you need to do is that you need to select the sample. So if you go at the top and you just click it, right here you have all the different directories where you can, of course, select samples. You can import your own directories and import your own samples. And you are on the directory. You just can click a sample, and by default it will audition. Now at the top you see this icon. This one will let you uncheck or just disable the playback when you select a sample, and you can also change the volume. So all of this is just to audition the sample. If you want to load a sample, you just need to double click, and once you do so, you're going to be loading that sample. Like I said before, you can go right here. You can create a new directory or import a new directory with samples. And right here, you can import a file. Now, then at the left and at the right, you have almost the same options that you have on the other engines. You have the course, which is going to be changing, the pitch. And then you have the key, right? To follow whatever it is that you do on your keyboard, and then the quantize, and then the fine tuning, right? So far, very simple options. But now you have something different. You have a low pass. You chop the higher frequencies. You can see that on the spectrum, and you can chop the lower frequencies. Cool. Then at the right side, you have the same options again. You have the volume of the engine section, and then you have the filter mix. You're going to be sending to 1 or to the 2. Then below, you have the volume for the sample, just like you have with the other engines. And then you have the start. And this one will offset the start of the playback sample, or the sample playback. And this is a global control. Then at the left side, you have the effects. And as you can see, we have the unison, just like we had before. And again, it works exactly the same. You have the chord, again, it's the same. And the super, which is exactly the same. But you have other options, like the resonator. Right here, you just have a resonator you can use. Then you have a bit crush. And if I go up, you can really hear the bit crush. And the funny thing with this one is that you're going to be crushing it. But if I play different keys, you will not track the keys. This is why you have this icon. If I press it, now it will track our keys. So we have something, a little bit more usable in my opinion, let's say. So then you have the modulation, and this one is a frequency mod FM, and then you have RIN mod. And just like the other engines, this is completely dependent of the modulator. If I change the ratio, it is using it. And then again, the ring mod is going to be the same. It needs the modulator as a modulator, right? And that's it, that's pretty much what you get on this screen. And again, not super hard, but now we need to talk about the edit section. So when you start a new patch or you use the sample engine, you have one sample, but then you have the A, B, C, D, E, and F. So you can load, these are our slots, and you can load a sample to different slots. If I go maybe to the B, notice that there's no sample. So I need to go right here. I need to maybe select a sample. And whenever this one is selected, if I play it, I'm going to be getting just that. And you know what? I'm going to be doing the same, but for the other samples, it's fine. And last but not least, it's going to be the F. There you go. So now I have sounds on all the different slots. And when I play it, when I press something, it's going to play it back. Like I said before, the start is the global. If I offset the start of the sample and I put it right here, now if I go to the other slots, they're going to be on the same position. Now all of this depends on the length of the sample. That is that this one, it's super short. It's not the same as the B, for example, which is a lot longer. So this is the global offset of the start, which means that you can go maybe to a sample and offset the start and the end. Right here, you have the trim start and you have the trim end. If I now play it, this is the only thing that we're going to be playing. So let me just do something like that. There we go. And if I play it, I just get this. If you want to fine tune it, you can drag the timeline just to make it bigger. And if you double click, it will go back to the center, or just zoom back in. And right here, you can freely move the start and the ending. And the snap, if you enable, it will snap the end and the start to a zero crossing point. So you can avoid having, this clicks and pops when you select the start or the end. Now, since I have a start and an end right here on the B, what happens if I go to the C? It's completely different. So you can go to the different slots and have different values. And this is when I move the start, it will start from the starting point of each slot. Right now, the only thing that happens is that when I play a key, it's just going to play back. But you can change this. You can transpose the sample. up and down. You're gonna go all the way up to 36 semitones, or you can just, go all the way down. And of course, this will affect the speed of the playback sample. You can fine tune, and you can also change the root node instead of transposing. Still, if your sample is on Z3 and you change it, if you double click, it will go back to the beginning. Still, if you really offset the root node, if you want to go back to the default, you just double click and it will go back to default. Now, right now, when I play back, it will only go forwards, and I'm still holding the key. When you two notice this, I'm still holding it. So what happens when we play back, when we change the playback? The play mode is forwards. If I click it, you have reversed. So now it will go in reversed. Pretty simple, right? Now then, you have the loop. If I select this, what it will do, it will enable loop. And as you can see, you have two selectors right here at the bottom. So this is the loop. So let's say that I play it. It will play back, and then it will get stuck right here and just loop this section. If I toggle off, of course, it will just remove it. You can still do this in reversed. If I go reversed and play it back, it will start in reverse. And when we reach this section, it's gonna get stuck and just loop, loop, loop. Right. Now, you have something else that it's an R, and this one means release. I'm gonna disable it. If I play it back, we have the same effect. And for now, it's maybe gonna go to normal. Just gonna get stuck right here. And as soon as I release the keys, it's gonna die. I'm gonna go to the envelopes and make the release really long. If I do the same thing, I'm gonna press and hold it, and I'm gonna release it. And when I do, just, dies, but keeps moving forward. Now I'm gonna be going to the R and just enable it. And when I press a key, and I'm gonna release it in 3, 2, 1. What is the difference? I'm gonna do it again. So what this does, it will just loop, and when I release the key, it will use this value, whatever we have on the release of the amp, and just keep looping the sample and just, fade it out completely. It's just different sounds, especially again, if you release the keys and you're still using the looping. In the same universe of the loop, at the bottom you have the loop mode. You can do forwards, which is what we are doing right now, and for now I'm just gonna disable the release, or you can use back and forth, which is when we play back, reach the end of the loop, and then it starts looping back and forward. And then you have the fade. If this is too clicky, going up in the fade, it will smooth the loop. If you can hear it, it's just too harsh. A lot more smoother. Alright, so this is what you can do with these options. And for now, I'm gonna go to forward and disable the loop. And these ones are just really simple. We are done with the edit section, right? It's just, again, very simple to understand. The thing is that you have a lot of options. You have the mix B, notice it says B, and this is the gain. It's just the gain. You know what? I'm gonna enable the loop. You can go higher, or you could just go down. And why do you have a gain? Because you already have volume and volume right here. Well, these volumes are globals. They handle all the volume of all the slots, but this one is the B slot. So you can maybe use different samples and just manage to gain from here. And then of course you have the pan. So all of these controls are just for are independent for each slot. What else? You can copy, if you click right here, you can maybe copy this sample to a different slot. If you wanted to, you can reload the default state. And if I do so, it will take me back to, the usual, the normal default values. And if you want to trash it, you can go here and it will remove the sample. But in this case, I don't want to do this. So this is what you get on the edit sample. You just go to the sample, you edit this, you select the start and the end, you do a loop, and that's pretty much it. And you can do this for all the different samples. Now then, you need to decide what's going to trigger or how you can play the samples. And that is going to be the map. If I go to the map, notice that you have a lot of different options. So this single, it means that you play a sample and it will play it. which sample? The one that it's selected at the bottom. If I go to the D, it's going to play the D. If I select this, the B, it plays the B. That's why it says single, right? Which, whatever sample or slot is selected, that's the one that's going to play. Then the other ones are a little bit different. If I go to key map means that depending on the key that I'm playing, it will play a sample. And right here, it's telling you the C0 octave will play the A slot, the C1, the B, and so on and so on. So if I go right up and I'm playing it right here, it's playing the F. But if I go one octave down, it's playing the E, and then it's playing the D, and then it's going to play the C and the B, and then if I go an octave down, it's going to play the A. Now then you have the key and the velocity map, and this is pretty similar but a little bit different. Oh, and notice that right here you can change the octaves that you're going to be using. Well, it's just completely up to you. If I go here, notice it's a Z minus 2 and then minus 1, so it's just pretty low. I'm going to go up to 0, and then C1, and then C2. So here, it will stack the slots. It's going to be A stacked with D, and E with B, and F with C. And depending on the velocity that you use, it will play the upper sample or the lower sample. So I'm going to put it right here, C2, C3, and C4, and I'm using a MIDI keyboard, and I'm going to be playing C. When I play it back, notice that the D is playing. And depending on the velocity, it will play the D. And the maximum, it needs to go over 64 in terms of velocity to play the D. And if I play hard, it will always play the D. But if I play very soft, it's going to play the A. I'm playing really soft. So that's it. It will use the velocity to play one slot or the other one. Same thing with the C3. If I go one octave higher, it's going to be the B. If I play soft but hard, it's going to be the E. And then the next octave is the same thing. Soft, it's going to be the C. Play hard, it's going to be the F. And that's it. It's just, again, very simple, but you have a lot of options. Then the sample pick. This one will always play the same sample, but if I choose the different slot, it will play that one, or the C, the D, the E, or the F. And this is something cool, so you can, modulate this control and play different samples, maybe with an alpha or something like that. Then you have the round robin, and this one it's again completely the same, but instead of selecting which sample is going to play, every time that you play a sample, then it will move on to the next, and the next, and the next. That's why it's called round robin. Every time you play a key, it will go to the next slot. And then, last but not least, you have the random. And this is, again, random. I'm going to be playing, and it's going to randomly select a slot for me. So again, as you can see, it's just really simple. We just covered pretty much the whole sample engine. You just edit the sample, right? You just select a sample, you edit the sample, and you decide how you want to play it. And, once you're done, you use it. Now, I'm going to stay on single, and I'm going to go back right here because the other side, you have the granular, and this one is different. And once you enable this, it doesn't matter which sample you're playing back, it will use the granular engine. So for this, I'm going to use this one because it's just a good example. So you have a lot of different options right here. And I know it looks really challenging, but each of the options, each param, will do something very simple. The point of granular is that instead of having a single playhead, you have multiple, and each playhead is going to be a grain. So the density right here, it's how many grains in hertz in this case you have. And by default, it's going to be 1 grain per second if you have 1 hertz. So I'm going to maybe go to right here, 1. So now if I play something, notice it, and I'm playing just once. And I'm holding the key. So in 1 second, and I'm going to make it longer, maybe I'm going to offset the start so you can really see this. So when I'm playing and holding, the grain lasts 1 second, but you only get 1 because remember we're using 1 hertz. So it's going to be 1 grain per second. But, since we can go up, I can go up and now we have 2 grains per second. If I keep going up, you can have 3 and 4. And as you keep going up, you can have more and more. And at some point, you won't be able to tell the difference of how many grains you have because you have a lot. In this case, 26. Now, as you go up in grains, of course, you have more playbacks, playbacks. Let's call it playbacks or playheads, playing back. So we'll use a lot more CPU. If I go all the way up, notice at the bottom you have 7%, 8%. But if I go down, maybe to 1, it's going to be 3%. So when you go more dense, it will use more CPU. Now, of course, you can create up to 250 grains because you have 250 hertz, but you can limit the amount of grains that you get. Right now, it's on 128, but I can go less and limit the amount of grains, and I can just make it 256 if I wanted to. And now if I go up, it's going to use like 10%, and I'm playing one single key. If I play many, it's going to be a lot more. So again, you use more grains, it's more CPU power. Depends on your computer. Alright, so I'm going to go back to 1 single hertz. So we have 1 grain per second. If I go here, you have different values. You have a straight, and now you are using a division. And then you can use triplets and dotteds. For now, I'm just going to go back to hertz, and I'm going to stay at 1. So then you have the size and you have the envelope. So each grain has a life cycle, right? In this case, we are using 1 per second. So it will start in some fashion and it will die in some fashion. How it starts or how it dies is going to be the envelope. And how it's doing it right now is using a triangle. It fades in and then fades out. But you can change this. If I go here, that is starting very harsh, and then it smoothly goes down. Or we can go the other way. Right, so it's ramping up. Now the thing is right here, you have a lot of different options. Right, and all of them can be, you can change the shape or the envelope for all of them. If I go maybe to this one, and you can of course offset it. And right here, I'm just showing you how this works. But you need to do your own work. Just use a sample, use the granular engine, and then just play around and find something that you like. I'm gonna go back to the triangle. And right now we know how many grains per second and how it's fading in and fading out. But then we don't know how long it is. And that's gonna be the size. If I go short, the grain is gonna be super short, but I can make it longer. If I go up, that is it now. The playback, it's just way longer. And I can go up to 1 second. This doesn't look, that much, but if I go up and we have more grains, this will get, very interesting. Because now you have a lot more density and it covers a lot more ground. Now, if I go to something normal, I'm going to double click. By default, it's 200 milliseconds. You can change it from change the time, but right now it's milliseconds. And then you can go into sync, just like, we do with the density. And then you can do triplets, dotteds, and you can even do ratio if you want to. But all of this just, it's completely up to you and what you want to do. Again, you need to play around with this. I'm going to go back to time. So as you can see, we can choose how many, we can choose the density, we can choose the life cycle, how it goes in and goes out, and then how long the grain is. So right now, all the grains, they do pretty much the same. They start some point, they go up, they go down, and they are this long. So the controls at the bottom, what they control is the randomness of the grains. Right now, they all do the same thing. Okay, so I guess we need to start with the one that says direction. I guess this is the first one. Right now, all the grains are going forwards, and if I go to just one, we can see that it goes forwards. But if I want to, I can go backwards, and now the grain will start from here and then go to the other side. Or you can do back and forward. It will go up and down, up and down. Now this is not about randomness, because it's not making it random, but all the other controls will do something very specific to alter the behavior of the grains. So for example, the start, it will set a random starting point. All of them, they start from the same position. But if I keep going up, is that sometimes starts here, sometimes starts here, so it will offset the start of the grain, not the sample, the grain. So keep going up, make it super aggressive. Notice it starts right here. If I go all the way down, it will start right here. Now the point is that if I go up, I can go and play after, which is what we are doing right now after the playback or the start. We can do before, and it will start playing before. Or we can do both. So now it's going to be after or before. And this is, a way of adding more randomness to whatever it is that we are doing. And that's, again, the point. So a little bit less static. On the other side, we have the pitch. And for now, I'm just going to go back to default. So if I go up in pitch, it goes wider, but also a little bit more crazy. And it's because this one, again, what it will do, it will pitch up and down the samples, and it's because we have both right now. So some samples, some grains are going to be pitched up, some other ones are going to be pitched down, and it's, again, random. So right here, instead of doing both, we can do higher, and when it's pitching, it's going to pitch up. So think of this controls as the density, let's say, or the depth. If I go down or lower, it's going to be lower. Or you can, again, just like we did before, we can do both. So okay, so we have the start, we have the pitch, and then we have the density. And this one, what it will do, it will offset whatever we have right here. And if I click here, it says denser or less dense. So since it's randomly modulating the density, if I have something super dense like this, I can say, you know what, I want less dense, and I want you to affect the density to make it less dense, because right now it's super dense. So now randomly this will be this value and less dense. Again, all of this is about randomness. If I have something that it's not super dense, as you can hear, I'm going to go to denser. And now this will modulate the density. It's like doing something like that. I'm just pretending, just trying to show you how it works behind the scenes, but it's just doing something like that. It's going to make it more dense or modulate the density. If I go down, we have the same thing. But all of this, really helps you to add a little bit of randomness and have something a little bit more unique. Just, randomly going right here. As it changes sound completely. And this is a piano sample. Alright, so I'm gonna go click, double click, and go back to the beginning. Maybe I'm gonna go to 1 per second, and I'm gonna make it 200, and just go back to the center. Then on the other side, you have this size, and since this one will randomly affect the density, this one will affect the size. And it's the same idea. If I go up, it will again affect the size, and you have 3 options. Both. It's going to be maybe shorter if I have something long. Let me go here, going to make it long. And I go up, it's going to be short. If I go do nothing, this will be super long. If I go up, some of them are going to be short, some of them are going to be longer, and so on and so on. If I go to longer and I do something short, well, again, we'll do the same thing. We'll make some of them longer, and some of them are going to be whatever time I have right here. And then you can do both, right? So it's going to go short and long. So then at the right side, of course, you have the volume. And then it goes kind of I won't say crazy, but it just sounds a little bit weird. And I'm using maybe too many grains. If I double click, it's nothing. So you may think, okay, so is this the volume? Yeah, but it's going to be the volume for each grain, not for the whole thing. So if I go up, it will modulate randomly, or just, alter the volume of each grain randomly. And that's why we have this sound. And you can see it on the spectrum. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down, so on and so on. Let me just do something specific right here. I'm going to do 5 And I'm gonna make sure that this is up and then just back to 1 and just, back to default. And I'm gonna play something. It doesn't sound that tasty, but that's fine. So then we have the width, and this is it's about stereo. If I go down, and maybe I'm gonna choose a different sample, and I'm gonna go up in width. Can you hear that it sounds a little bit different? So yeah, you're just making it bigger. So this one takes the size, the pitch, and the start, and it will offset the left and the right. So that's why it goes wider. And if I, do a little bit of pitch and a little bit of start and add a little bit of randomness, this is going to be a little bit more obvious. Super wide, centered, almost. And then you have the other one, which is going to be the pan. If I go up, this is a little bit different. It's not the same. So what the pen does, which is a little bit different from the width, it will take the grain and it will just pan it to the left or either to the right. And that's why it sounds wider. And it's, again, different from the width. It's just, like panning the different grains. If you think about this, this is like having different voices. If you play many voices and you pan the voices to different, to the one side, or to the right, to the left, to the right, or maybe put it in the center, it's going to sound wider because you are just panning the voices. Well, this is the same idea, but with the grains. Let's talk about the harmonic engine, and this one is like the sample engine. It looks, a little bit challenging, but once you separate the sections, it's just pretty simple to understand. Okay, so let's start, with the easy parts. Just get the easy parts out of the way. If I play something, it sounds like this, which is pretty much a saw. Then at the left, you have the key. You can, toggle it off. You have the quantize just like before. You can coarse down or up, and then you have your fine tune, same as before. You can go to your filter mix, and you can change the volume for the whole damn thing, or change the volume for the engine for this section. Now notice that it says partials, and right here, it starts the harmonic engine. So how this works is that you add partials, and then you modulate or you alter those partials, those harmonics. You can choose up to 128 partials, or you can do less, or you can do up to 512. I'm gonna leave it on just 128. So when you play something, you can see all the partials that you have. And if you go down in this control, it will start chopping the partials, or you just get less. It's like filtering the partials. And that's, how it sounds. It sounds like just a filter, but it's just not. Alright, so the most important part of this engine is what you use at the bottom. Because if I play something like this, and even if I choose less partials, it sounds pretty dull. So when you start using the options at the bottom is when it gets really tasty. So first I'm going to start with this. This is the imaging mode, partials modulation, and I'm going to start with the split. So again, this one will generate partials, and these are just harmonics. So right here, you can move the odd and the even. If I go to the left, this is what happens, is moving the odd harmonics to the left. And if I want to, I can move the even harmonics to the right. Or maybe I could just move everything to the left. So just like this, you can offset the different harmonics and have something a little bit different. Now the options are a little bit different. You have the random. As you go up in depth, it's going to randomly move the harmonics up and down on the stereo. How fast? Well, that's going to be the rate. If I want super fast and more aggressive, we create a motion with this. Then you have the periodic, and as you can see, this one has a kind of a sine wave icon. If I go here, this one is about periods, and then the depth. If I move the periods, nothing happens. So if I go up, what it will do, it will create clusters, and these clusters will affect if it goes to the left or goes to the right. Now right now, it's really aggressive. I'm gonna go down, and if I go down, notice that we can see that sine wave. So these are the clusters. As we go up in periods, we create more clusters and more and more and more. And how they go to the left or right is the depth. Still, like I said before, this sounds pretty dull when we use it this way. If I maybe go right here and just assign I don't know, an LFO or maybe something to the depth, starts, something a little bit different. So it sounds a little bit more fun now than before, right? So this is what you will need to do with this engine. If you do something very simple, like selecting just a value and leave a static value, just like this, it sounds super dull. So okay, so what else do you have? Then you have the shape, the shape section. And this, it's a little bit more than the shape, has a lot more. So you have a morph, that it's going to morph between the A and the B, and you can use different shapes for the A and the B. And then you have a high pass and you have a low pass. Now, if I do something, and if I play it now, and I move the morph, nothing happens. Even if I change the shape, nothing really happens. And it's because they are tied, all of these controls, they're tied to the depth and the section. So I need to use this in order to get something of this. Now, before we go there, we need to talk about the parity, the time offset, and the tilt. And it's because they don't need anything from the morph and everything else. They are independent. So I'm going to play something. The parity is going to change how much even or how much odd you get from the sound. If I go to 100% even, I'm just getting even harmonics. If I go to odd, we just get odd. And 50%, it's just, 50 and 50. Right. So then you have the tilt. And this is when the amplitude is going to decay. If I move it, or maybe just double click it, it's just like super aggressive. I go down, it's gonna decay the higher parts. And I make sure that, this control, the partials, is all the way up. As I go down on the tilt, this is what we get, is how it decays. If I go up, it's gonna decay less. Now then, this is how it decays. Then the other one, we have when it starts decaying. If I go up on the offset, this is again a little bit different, and it will decay in a different way. If I go up and I go the other way, it will decay from the other side. So if you think about this, again, like we discussed previously, this is something that you can use to modulate. You can modulate all of these controls and get something tasty. That's the point. Alright, so let me go back to defaults. So we have the same as before. Now we can use the shape. Again, if I do something, nothing happens. I need to provide some depth. If I go up, something will start to happen. And you can see what's going on right here. It gives you a representation of what it's doing. In this case, I'm using the A, and what it's doing is like notching down the harmonics this fashion with whatever we have right here on the spectrum. If I use this one, this is what will happen. If I go up in depth, it's going to be more aggressive, or if I go down, it's going to be less aggressive. We can use a low pass or a high pass to control the sound, and all of this will just, give you a different sound. Then the section is going to choose which section is the one that you're affecting. And you can see the blue selection right here. And maybe if I go down, it's just using this part and so on, and I'm being really aggressive. And all of this again sounds really cool when you start modulating. Alright, so I'm going to leave it on default and default right here. And I'm going to remove this. Then you have the A and the B. And right here, what you can do when you do some depth is that you can morph it between the A and the B. That's the point. Another good example is again, just modulating this control. And maybe if I go to the LFO, I guess it's the 2, and I go faster, we get something cool. We can maybe choose something like, there we go. Like I said before, again, modulating is key for this engine. And this is what we can do with the shape and everything else. Then you have the other side, which is the phase mod and the frequency mod. And just like the other engines, we use the modulator, which could be the modulator R or the other engine to add some modulation. And if I do a mount, again, we are doing phase mod with whatever is that we use on the modulator. Gonna go down, why not? And you know what, I'm gonna be doing a little bit of reverb, why not? Then on the other side you have frequency mod. A lot better than before, right? Especially when you modulate. Right, what else do you have? I'm gonna do no mount. I'm gonna go maybe back to default so you can see it. I'm gonna go here and then go to the harmonic engine. If I play it back, super dull. Okay, so I'm gonna add a little bit of reverb. You have this section, and this one now it's a little bit different than the other ones. You have window, you have cluster, and then you have shepherd. First I'm gonna go to window, and if I play something, I can gain up or I can gain down. But notice that nothing happens. And it's because you need to adjust the position. For now, I'm gonna do gain up, and if I move the position, you can see the position right here. But this is going down or up on that section, on that position. So you can maybe just target something and just go up and gain or go down and gain. The thing is that it's super small, right? So that's gonna be the wind size. If I go up, it's gonna take more. You know, I can use this maybe to modulate or even, you know, modulate the position. Why not? And on top of that, you have the FM. Maybe that's too much, something like that, it's fine. All right. You know, you have a lot of tools for this. Then you have the clusters. The cluster, what will do, it will create clusters, it makes sense. And then it will bulk the partials together. And it sounds a little bit weird. So let me give you an example. I'm gonna create 7 clusters, right? Just 7. I'm gonna play it, nothing happens. I'm gonna go up in density. I'm gonna go to around 50 or 60%. Can you notice the difference between 50 and 60? We have 7. And right now I need you, and I'm gonna go down in frequency because it's just a little bit annoying. We have 1, 2, then 1, 2. We can count 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So we are creating clusters of 2. Why 2? Well, right here, because in the partials we have 2. If I go on the partials and I say 3, now it's gonna be clusters of 3, and then of 4 and 5, and so on and on and on. In this case, I'm gonna keep it on, you know, 3, around 3. As you go more density, it's just going to be more obvious. There we go. We're going to go up. This is what we do. We select how many clusters we have, and then how many partials we get for each cluster. And then we alter the position. So then we have the position, which is going to be where we apply this effect. If I go up, notice that it's not doing it right here at the beginning, it's doing it here. Maybe if I put it there, it's happening on this position. If I do less clusters, now we have 2, then 3, and so on and so on. So again, all of this is something that you need to take and have fun. Just fool around with all of these effects. So what else do we have? We have the shepherd. This one, it's almost like the window. And notice that we have the gain up. If I go to the window, we have the same options, position, wind size, and gain, and then it says FM. But the other one has the same options, but it's PHI or Phi. If I play something, I'm gonna make it brighter. I'm gonna go up in gain, it will go up in gain. If I go down in gain, it will go down in gain, just like the window. And right here, just like before, we can change the wind size to make it smaller. We can make it bigger. just like, again, just like the window. And if we change the position, we can change the position. So let me maybe adjust the position and just put it right here. Now the difference right here is going to be the phi or PHI. That is what happens now. It sounds a little bit atonal. If I go all the way up on the phi, nothing happens. So I need to go down. So we are selecting this part. We can go up in gain and down in gain, but at the same time, we are kind of offsetting the harmonics. That is the relationship between them. So that's the main difference with the window. So again, you can go up in gain and offset the position. And like I said before, all of this is just super fun when you start modulating the effects. Maybe this is something that would be nice if we modulate it with an LFO. Because I'm using the LFO 1. Something like that. Right, maybe I'm gonna go to right here and just, do some kind of modulation. It doesn't matter. Maybe here on depth, I'm gonna do more. Just like this, you need to have some fun. Do some depth, maybe some morph. I'm gonna use the LFO to do the morph. Maybe it's just too fast. I'm gonna do it bipolar. And this engine, at the same time, it's kind of a geeky. You need to spend some time to get something, something that sounds cool. But if I promise, just like the sample engine, if you fool around, you use modulators and functions and random, and you go crazy, you can find very unique, cool sounding patches. You can create cool sounding patches, but you need to spend the time. If you just move a couple knobs, it's just not going to sound that tasty. Alright, so we are done with all the main engines. Now we need to talk about the last one. And yeah, it is an engine, right? So we have 3 sound generators. The first ones are noise, and the last one is a sub, or maybe just an oscillator. So let's talk about the first one. You have some common controls. All the different ones, all of them, they have a filter mix. So you can change or control the mix where it's going in terms of filters. You can do this independently. And you can manage the volume or the output of each, which is, again, super cool. Now, for now, I'm just going to go to the noise 1. And you can change, or you can select the sample that is playing on this slot. And you have a few options. Now, the thing that you need to know is that this is not a sample engine or sample playback. You cannot import samples. You can only do it on the sample engine. Right here, you can choose the ones that you get. And, you do get a lot. Laughs? No, I don't want laughs. There you go, a mess. Oh, I like this one. So, okay, so right here, when you play a key, and I'm doing it so, I'm playing and holding. What it will do, it will start playing the sample, and then it will just keep looping. And on this section, you can fine-tune all of this. If you have random, when you play a key, it will start on a random place. And you know what? Let me just select a different sample. On the natural directory, you have the branches and birds. I guess this is a good example for this. If I play it back, and I'm going to go up in volume, when I release the key and play back again, this is it. Sometimes it will randomly start. Well, actually, it will always play back from a random place. If I disable the random and now I go to key, every time I release and I play a key, it will start from the beginning. So it's completely up to you. If you want to use it when you play keys to start in a more random place, use random. If not, just press key and it will always start from the beginning. By default, if I play a key, and depends on the length of the sample, I play back, it will play the whole sample and then loop back again and keep playing it as I'm holding the key. But you can disable the loop. Now I can choose the length of my sample. If I make it really short, it will just play one time and I'm still holding the key. It will not loop. So it's like a one shot. And then you have this one, which is going to be the key tracking. If I play a key and I'm playing a C, now if I go up, notice it will pitch up the sample to match your keys. But it's just, sampling down and up so you can have different keys. Maybe this sample is not the best example, but you can hear that when I play different keys, it's changing the pitch. Also, you have the tune, which means that you can tune it up or you can tune it down, even if I turn off the key. And then, last but not least, you have the filter. You can low pass or high pass. And all of this, it's not related to the other filter, to the main filters. Alright, so this is what you get on the Noise 1. On the Noise 2, you have something a little bit different. Everything else is just the same, but you can see that you have a tiny little arrow right here. So this is the source. By default is going to be the Noise 2, which is again the same as the Noise 1. But if you choose the audio input, now you lose everything, and what you can use is the audio in as a noise generator or as a whatever source. You could use a kick or snare, a drum kit, whatever it is that you want. And whatever it is that you use will go through this audio in, where you can change the mix or go to a filter, or you can low pass and high pass. And all of this depends on how you're using it. If you're using it as a standalone on your computer, well, you need to go to the settings and you need to configure what's the audio in, which is going to be, something on your interface. Maybe the input 1, 2, 3, 4. It depends on what you're using. In the case of a DAW, this is a little bit different. What's your audio in? Well, it's going to be the sidechain. I'm using Bitwig right now, so if I go right here, notice that you can see a sidechain icon. So this one will let me select some input or some other track, and whatever other track I select, that's going to be my input. But all of this depends on your DAW. On Bitwig, you have this sidechain. On Ableton, it's going to be, the same, but, it's going to be on a different place, like the track. On Studio One, you have it on the plugin right at the top. So you need to enable it as a sidechain. Now then, if I turn this off, you have the last one, which is going to be an oscillator. And right here, you have the same thing that you get on an analog type of engine. You have your coarse, you have your fine, you have your key, your quantize. So if I go to the analog, we have the same thing. The only thing that we don't have is the drift. Now maybe you're wondering, why do we get something like this? Oh no, if I go to a pulse or a triangle, I can even change the width, just like we did before. You can coarse and you can fine tune. So this is, a good engine because it's a utility engine. So you can maybe add this as a sub generator. That's, I guess, the point of this. So if I'm doing something right here on the analog and on the wavetable, I don't need to add a sub on this engine just to have something going, because I will be occupying an oscillator. So I can simply go to the utility and use the oscillator, this oscillator, as a sub. That's, I guess, the plan of the utility engine. Alright, so that's it. You can use noise, or you can use the sub, or just the oscillator that you have right here. Whatever you generate on your engines will go through the filters, and the default behavior is that the sound goes into the one, gets filtered in some fashion. If I play something, it's going to get filter, and then whatever sound that comes out, it will go to the filter number 2, so you can do some further processing with, whatever it is that you want right here. So this is how it works by default. Then at the right side, you have something that says filter routing, but everything can change if you change the configuration here. If I move the knob, notice it says filter 1 into filter 2, but as I move it on, to go up on this value, you're going to be doing a little bit of both. If you go all the way to the other side, now the filter 1 and the filter 2 will go in parallel. So the 1 goes out to the effects and the 2 will go out to the effects. It's not 1 going into the 2. And at the end, what it does, it will sum whatever comes out of the 1 and the 2, and it will be, sending it to the effects section. That's what you can do right here, and that's why you see the sum. And if I just click it, notice this pre-effects. So even if you're going 1 into the 2, or maybe 1 and 2 in parallel, everything gets summed and gets sent. It will be sent to the effects section. That's again how it works. But what I can do, I can click the split, and now the 1 will go to the slot A of the effects, and the B or the 2, it will go to the effects B of the effects. So right now, it depends, again, what are you using on the output. And just to show you how this works, I'm going to go to the slot A, which is this one, the delay and the reverb, and I'm just going to go all the way up on the wet. So we really know that we are going into this slot of the effects. And I'm sending to the effects, to the filter number 1. So the 1 process something, it will go out and it will go to the effects B. Now if I go right here and send only to the filter 2, the 2 goes to the B, and I have nothing on the B. That's why we hear no effects. So at the end of the day, you can choose what you can do. Another thing you can do is that you can invert the instruction. Now 1 is going to the B, and then 2 is going to the A. Now then on the filters, we get the usual, and the filters are just pretty simple. First, you need to select the mode. The first mode is going to be the multi-mode, and you get the usual suspects. You get the cutoff filter, and I'm going to the 2. I need to go to the 1. You get the cutoff, you get the resonance, so you can create a bump at the breakpoint. Then you have a volume that goes out, and as you can see, you have many gain stages right here. You can pan it to the left or to the right. And then at the bottom, since this is the multi-mode, you have different ways like band pass, notches, high pass. You have a lot of different modes. And this is again because we are using the multi-mode. This is the cleanest from the from Pigments. But then you can choose maybe other filter modeled after something, right? The MS-20 or SEM or Matrix or Jupiter. If I go to MS-20, we get this. And now we have less options. We have 6 or we have 12. Depending on the mode that you select, you will be getting different options, right? So yeah, this is what you can do. You have a lot of different options, and then you go to the other types, which are the more utility type of filters. Like for example, the phaser. If I go to the phaser, you have more calm, formant. But they are just different. They give you different types of a different type of effects. It's a different type of filter. And now this is super useful to use in tandem with the filter number 2, because maybe I want to have to create a sound like this, so maybe I can go to an LFO, just have it modulate, something like that. But maybe it's again way too bright. So now I can go maybe to multi-mode, and I can control it with my cutoff. Right, so that's the plan. And that's it, you choose a mode, and for now I'm just gonna delete the modulation. We're gonna talk about modulations in a minute, but you choose your mode and the, type, and that's it, you just filter. Now then at the bottom, this option, and you have it on almost all of them, not the very specific ones, but you have this one. Let me go back to multi-mode. This one, which is like a modifier. And by default, I'm going to go to a default patch, you have it on keyboard. But if you click it, you have a lot of different sources. It's because this one is a modulator of the cutoff frequencies. And by default, it says keyboard because this is the keyboard tracking. It is something, very common that you get on most synthesizers. And so if you don't know what keyboard tracking is, I'm going to show you, because why not? This guide is already way too long. But I'm going to go here. And if I go at the bottom, you see all these modulation sources, and the purple ones are for the keyboard. So if I assign the cutoff to the keyboard, now whatever key I play will modulate the cutoff. If I play higher frequencies, the cutoff will open a little bit more, and I'm going to make it a little bit more aggressive. So if I play higher frequencies, we can hear it, and we can see that as I go down on the keys, the cutoff will close a little bit more. And this is how we can modulate the cutoff with the keyboard. Well, this control, it's pretty much the same thing. We are using the keyboard to scale the cutoff up or down. And again, it's a very common control. If I play a higher key, we're cutting a lot of frequencies we cannot hear, but if I go up and I play a higher key now, we can hear it. So it's moving the cutoff up or down depending on the keys that we play. Again, very common control. But right here, you can use other sources, like for example, the envelope. We can use the first envelope. We have 3 envelopes. And on a synthesizer, like a standard synthesizer, we can modulate the cutoff with an LFO, or we can modulate it with the keyboard control, or we can modulate this with an envelope. This is a very standard thing to do on a synthesizer. And right here, you don't have a knob just to, use an envelope to modulate it. So what you need to do is you need to manually go and modulate it, select it as a source, and then have the envelope modulate the cutoff. But instead of doing this, what you can do, instead of using keyboard, you just go here, select the envelope 2, and now the cutoff will be using the envelope 2 generator to do the modulation. And you don't need to go manually and go right here and do it, like this. Now, if you ask me, in my opinion, I much prefer to use this for the keyboard and go manually and map it to an envelope, because I can see right here the modulation. It's just much easier, right? But again, all of this is just completely up to you. Before we talk about each modulation, each source that you get right here, we need to learn how to assign a source to a destination. And you pretty much have 3 ways to do it. For now, I'm gonna go maybe here and just gonna get a saw or something with a little bit more harmonics. Something like that. So we can really notice it. So I want to modulate the cutoff. I'm gonna go to an LFO, and what we can do, we can just click, drag, and then drop. At the bottom, we have the control to select the intensity, to choose the intensity. If it's going to be, super intense, or it's going to be negative or positive, right? But this is the depth, the intensity of the LFO. You can also go to the source, and you can handle the intensity from here directly if you want to. In my opinion, if I want to do this, I much prefer to do it from here, but again, completely up to you. Now, what happens if I want to delete this? Well, you can go to the assign, but if you go here, you hover and you go to the depth, you can double click and it will go back to 0. And 0 means no modulation, so it will remove it from the modulation source. So that's, one way of doing this. Another way will be to go to the destination, click the plus, and it will let you select the intensity or the depth with this slider. So if I go up, we can modulate the cutoff. If I double click, it will go back to 0. And remember that we can go into negatives or we can go into positives. So this is the other way of assigning an LFO. a modulation. The other way will be going to the source. I'm going to go to assign, and once you are on this screen, it means that you are on that source. In this case, it's LFO. So now all the things that you can modulate, you can go here and you can drag and select the amount or depth. Just drag and click and drag. And that's it. Once you're done, if you want to destroy the modulation, if you're in this mode, you need to go right here to the X, and you can also change the depth from within the modulator. In this case, I want to destroy it or remove it. I'm going to click it and it's gone. I'm going to be using the LFO number 1 just to assign it to multiple sources. And you know what? I'm going to be going to the LFO, and I'm going to go to this tab, and I'm going to make it unipolar. And we're going to talk about this much later. But now, again, I want to maybe modulate the cutoff. I want to modulate the resonance. And I don't know, I want to modulate the position. Why not? I'm going to go here and just do something like that. So if I play it, we have a couple things going on. Cool. If I go to the LFO, I know that I have 3, and we can go right here and just edit the depth when we are inside a modulator. Now, then at the left side of the source or the modulator, you can perform global functions. You can mute all. If I play it and I mute it, it's going to mute all at once. Pretty simple. Or you can unmute all. and you can remove all, you can reassign to maybe a different modulator, or you can copy all to a different modulator. Now, these are global functions. I could go to each of the functions and just turn them off, and we can perform almost the same tasks. Like, for example, if I click here, we can reassign to a different place and then copy the modulation to a different place. If I want to reassign this, the cutoff maybe to the LFO number 2, I'm going to click it. It's going to remove it from this modulator, and it will put it on the other destination, the LFO in this case. So I'm going to go to the LFO 2, I'm going to remove all, and LFO 1 and remove all. Now, when you assign something, and I'm going to do just one LFO, let's say I want to do something like this, right? I want to modulate the cutoff with an LFO. You have something that says sidechain right here. So this sidechain is the modulation for the modulation. And I know it sounds weird. So let's say I want to use this LFO, right? I want to do something like this. But I want I want to control the intensity when I want. So maybe I want to go to the keyboard and use my mod wheel to control this LFO. Well, that's going to be the sidechain. If I click sidechain, it's going to ask you, what do you want to use to sidechain this modulation? And you can use a different LFO. You can use whatever you want. Macro, the other functions, random, an expression. Again, you can use whatever you want. In this case, I want to use something very normal, which is the mod wheel. I'm going to select the mod wheel. And then it will ask you right here, how much of the mod wheel will affect this modulation. And by default, it's 50, which is like 50%, let's say. It's like right there in the middle. I could go all the way up to 1 or all the way down to -1. Depends on, on the thing that you're trying to control. In this case, I'm going to go all the way up to 1. And notice that it's not moving. If I play a key, I can see the cutoff right there, and I can see it moving, but it's not running the modulation. And it's because now my mod wheel, it's fully controlling fully the LFO. If I go up on the mod wheel, it will let pass the modulation, and now we get it. So I can control this with my mod wheel. Super cool, right? One more thing before we move forward to the next thing. Right here you have an amp mod. You can even modulate this. And this will control how the volume goes out, is a modulator for the amp. And right now you have velocity. And if you are using velocity, notice that you have a lot of functions, but if I use velocity, it means that if I play very soft, the volume is going to be very low. But if I play hard, the velocity, again, is modulating the volume. But you can use something else. Let's say that you want a tremolo type of effect. You can use the LFO to get that tremolo. Or even, an envelope or whatever other thing that you want to use. Cool. So for now, I'm just going to go to none. Now that we know how to assign a modulation, we need to discuss the different modulations. We have the keyboard, all of the purple ones, the envelopes, the LFO, functions, random, combinate, and then last but not least, we have the macros. So when you go to keyboard, the keyboard tab, you have some options like, the bend. Maybe I'm gonna go to saw, something with a little bit more middle finger. If I go up on the mod, on the pitch, you have your pitch bend. You can change the bend right here, how much you go up and how much you go down. You have your mod wheel, and again, you have different options. And right here is where you change the velocity, the aftertouch, the keyboard, and we're going to talk about this in a second. Because first, we need to go to the modulation sources that we have right here. If we want to modulate something with velocity, well, we have the velocity, and depending on how hard we hit the keys, this will, affect. If I do soft, you can see right here I'm doing very softly. If I go hard, it's going to scale and go up in modulation. And just with the velocity or any of these controls, you can create really cool sounds. Cool, so that's the velocity. Pretty simple. You use the keys, the velocity of your keys just to do something. Now then you have the AT, and this one, it's aftertouch. And all depends it depends on the keyboard or the source that you're using. If your keyboard doesn't have aftertouch, you cannot do this. You need a keyboard with aftertouch. And right now I'm just, playing something and applying that aftertouch. simple. Then you have the MW, which is going to be the mod wheel. If I go up, it means that it will go up in mod wheel, and only when I go up on the mod, it will go up and down. Cool. What else? And then you have the keyboard, and the keyboard is, and we kind of already did this, but when we discussed the filters, if I go on to higher keys, notice that the keyboard instruction will go up. So the modulation will go up, or it will go down if I go to lower keys. Let me go to higher keys. As I keep going down, it will provide an instruction to go down. So we can use this to modulate volume, to modulate position of something, maybe the tune, we can do whatever it is that we want with this. And last but not least, you have the exp, and this is the expression, whatever MIDI expression that you have and you can use, you can assign it right here. Now I'm gonna maybe go to, I'm gonna go to Aftertouch, because I really like Aftertouch and I use it the whole time. And always depending on what you're using on the controller, maybe a MIDI controller or a keyboard or whatever it is that you're using, the aftertouch will always be a little bit different. So right here at the bottom, you can control or just, fine tune this control. So if I go to aftertouch, right here, you can see what I'm doing with the aftertouch. You can see that it's very sensitive. So if you drag this line, you can change the curve in how the aftertouch will modulate, or how much pressure I will need to do when I'm playing to run the modulation. You can do exponential, or you can even click and just break it into different parts. If I do something like this, maybe something like that, it means that if I do aftertouch and I'm applying aftertouch, it will not move it a lot because this is all the way down. Only will do it if I play really hard. By doing this, you're just modifying the aftertouch or how it should work. You're controlling it a little bit better. The same thing goes with velocity. Maybe instead of using the default velocity, you can say, if I go up, just like this, as soon as I play something, the velocity will be really high. I don't need to play super hard to run a modulation. And you can do the same thing for the keyboard. You can offset the keyboard. And again, this is something really useful, especially when you use velocity, aftertouch, or the keyboard to run modulation on your patch. Coming up next is the envelopes, the ones that you have right here. And you have 3 envelopes that you can use, and we can use all of them. But the first one is the amp envelope, and you cannot change that. This ADSR will control how the volume goes out. Another thing that you cannot change here is the retrigger source. We're going to talk about the retrigger source, but you cannot change it on the first one. You can change it on the other 2. The 3 envelopes are a standard ADSR. This video is way too long, so if you want to know how an ADSR works, go to the web and just type, how an ADSR works, and you will find a million videos explaining how an envelope or ADSR works. So you can use this as an ADSR, or you can use it as an ADR. So pretty much there's no sustain stage. And okay, so I'm gonna be maybe doing something like that, and I'm gonna be using the cutoff, and if I play something, it sounds like that. And I'm gonna use the envelope 2 and assign it to the cutoff. Right, so we can see the modulation right here. So you have an attack, you have a decay, you have a sustain, and you have a release. Again, I'm not going to explain how an ADSR works, but that's pretty much it. Now then, you can decide, or you can change the curve of the attack from exponential to linear to logarithmic, which is something super useful, especially on this type of synthesizer, right, where is a workhorse. You need these controls. Now then, notice that I can change the decay and the attack, but I cannot change the release. Now, if I click this, what this will do, it will link the decay and the release. And it will, of course, affect the curve, will affect the decay and the release, just like, you can see it right here. But it will also use the decay as the time for the release. Notice they are linked now. That's why we are linking. So if you go high decay, it's going to be high release. Short decay is going to be short decay. Like I said before, you can make this an ADR. So it means that if I play it and I'm holding the keys, as you can see it, I'm just holding it, there's no sustain stage, right? It's not sustaining. And it doesn't matter how much I go up or go down, it will not go into sustain. Double click, again, go back, and even I'm gonna go back to ADSR. So that's it, it's not super complex. These ones are just very simple and classic because if you want to create crazy envelopes, well, you have the functions for that. Right here you have the classic ADSR. Still, you have something cool right here at the bottom. You have the retrigger source. And by default, on all the different envelopes, you have a poly keyboard, which means that when you play a key, it will trigger. And maybe I'm going to do something a little bit more fun. I'm going to add a little bit more release, a little bit of attack, and a little bit of decay. So when I play something, whatever I play will trigger the envelope. So it's the MIDI keyboard, right? So this is listening to my keys and re-triggering every time I'm playing a key. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can choose a different source to re-trigger the envelope. You can use mono, keyboard, legato. We're going to talk about this in a minute, maybe when we talk about the LFOs, but maybe you can use an LFO. So I'm going to go right here, and if I play a key, notice that it's still, my keyboard is still triggering the envelope. And this is because the LFO, it listens to the keyboard. So maybe I can go right here and I can say free running. So now the LFO will not restart when I play a key. If I go back to the envelopes, I'm going to be playing a key, and you can see that I'm just playing. But the envelope is not restarting because the only one that can make the envelope restart is the LFO 1. One cycle of the LFO. If I go fast on the LFO, it's gonna make it re-trigger. And whatever it is that you do on the LFO in this case is gonna affect the envelope. Now again, we're gonna talk about the LFO in a minute, but you can use other sources like the grain trigger, as you can see right here. The random functions, this is the random, of course. What else? You can use functions, or you can even use the sequence to re-trigger the envelope. Like I said before, you cannot change the re-trigger source of the first envelope because it's the VCA. This is the synthesizer envelope, right? The main amp envelope. If you go at the bottom, you see your play modes. You can go up to 32 in polyphony if you want to, but if you go to mono or legato, you're pretty much changing, the re-trigger source because you're changing how the synth works. Back to a default patch, I'm gonna cut off some frequencies and do the same thing than before. Go to a saw, and I want to talk about the LFO. So I guess I'm gonna be going to the LFO 1 and running some modulation. Right? Super simple. So the LFO 1. Actually, all the LFOs are the same. They can do the same thing. Right here, you can choose a different waveform by clicking it. And as you do so, you can hear the change. You have a ramp down, ramp up. And this one, it's going to be random, let's say, or sample and hold. Now, as I click the different waveforms, you can see that the waveform moves. And it's because all the LFOs are morphing type of LFO. It's a morphing LFO. So as I go up, it's going to morph into the next shape, right? And so on and on and on. So it's a morphing type of LFO, super useful. Now then, and I'm going to stay, I guess, on the sine wave. The rate will decide how fast it goes, and I can go up in hertz really fast. Or I can just go here and lock into sync and use divisions. Very standard controls for any other, for any synthesizer. If I click here, instead of using sync, I can go to straight only, or I can go to triplets only, or dotted only. And you're maybe thinking, why do I get this? Well, if you're modulating the rate control and you're in sync, you're going to be going through all of them. And sometimes that's just way too much, or it doesn't sound that good. So maybe if you want to modulate through the triplets only, you can easily do it by using triplets. Notice when I move this, it's super consistent. That's the point. Another thing you can do, and for now I'm going to go to hertz, because why not? You can change the symmetry of whatever waveform that you're using, and all the different waveforms will give you a different, different shape. And this is again like a modifier of the shape. If I go to the pulse and I move the symmetry, is the width. Again, this symmetry is just another way of just getting more waveforms from the waveforms that you get right here, because you don't have crazy waveforms. So again, it's just a way of getting more modulation sources or waveforms from the LFO. Like I said before, with the envelopes, if you want crazy modulations, well, then that's the function or the other ones that you have right here, random and combinate. Another thing that you can do, if I go here, you can make it uni or bipolar. So if you don't know what that is, right now I'm gonna remove the modulation and I'm gonna do it again. My cutoff is at almost 50%. So if I go to LFO and I assign it, notice that it goes up and down, and the modulation goes up and down. But maybe I don't want to go up and down. I just want to go up from the position, the current position. So that's going to be unipolar. From current position, only up. If I do a bipolar, it's going to go up and down. That's what it means. And for now, I'm going to go to unipolar. Now then, you can adjust the phase. By default, every time the waveform or the LFO restarts, it will restart from this position and then go up and then go down and then restart. But if you move the phase, now it's going to start here and then go down and up. So you're pretty much changing where the LFO starts. Just like the symmetry right here at the bottom, you have modifiers. You have smooth, key track, and then fade. So just to give you an example, if I go to maybe this one and I go up, we have a square. And as we know, this square is up and down. So it's like an on and off type of deal. Super harsh. So we can go up in smooth and it will smooth the corners of whatever shape. And this is something super important maybe if we are using something like this. And just to give you a better example, I'm going to map the LFO to maybe the course. So yeah, I'm just going to be doing something like that. So as you can see, this is going up and down pretty harsh. And maybe I'm going to remove the cutoff for now. And I'm just going to play it. And it's going up and down really hard. But maybe I just want to smooth the transition. So if I go up in smooth, now it's like gliding through the different frequencies, right? So up and down really hard, and then just gliding. Cool. I'm gonna remove it from the course and just go back to the beginning, and I'm gonna maybe go to the same example than before, where we have just the cutoff. And I'm gonna go to a sine wave, very easy to hear. What happens if I choose the other ones? We have the fade, which is something very common that you have on synthesizers. As soon as I play, I just play the key, the modulation will begin, right? So I can hear that as soon as I play, it starts. If you applied some fade, it will fade in the LFO. So maybe that's too much. I'm going to be doing something like that. So when I play a key, notice that the modulation fades in instead of going or starting really hard. This is something, again, super useful if you are just, maybe you have some, you're playing some keys or you create some pads or something like that. If I play a chord, creates a nice little effect. Alright, so I'm gonna go down on the fade, and the other one is gonna be the key track. And this, what it does, it will affect the rate of the LFO. If I go up on the keys, we always have a constant rate. It's just a constant rate. And I'm playing, let me just show you, I'm playing different keys, and I'm going up, down. Right, so I'm playing different keys. If I go back to the LFO and I say, okay, so I want to do something, this will affect the rate. If I play higher keys, and maybe I'm doing a little bit too much, if I play higher keys, the rate is going to be scaled up. And as I keep going down, it's going to be slower and slower and slower and slower. So we are just, again, depending on which keys we play, it will affect the rate of the LFO. And last but not least, on this section, you have the reset source. So just to show you how this works, let me go down. As soon as I play a key, and notice it says poly keyboard. As soon as I play a key, the LFO will begin from the starting point. It's going to be whatever phase that you get. And notice changing the phase will make the LFO start on a different place. But as soon as I play a key, it will just do it. And I'm just tapping the keys. So this means poly keyboard. Or it could be mono keyboard. If you don't know the difference, I'm going to show you in a minute. But the point right here is that you can change the retrigger source. Maybe I want free running. Free running, it means that it doesn't care when I'm playing a key and I'm tapping it. It will constantly go, which is something that you get on, on analog synthesizers. They will not reset. Not all of them, of course. I'm talking about old analog synthesizers. It will not re-trigger the LFO when we play a key. But you can have all the thing re-trigger the LFO, like for example, the LFO number 2. So if I play it, and I change the rate of this LFO, notice it is just re-triggering. The LFO 2 is super fast, it's re-triggering the 1. And now maybe on the 2, I can just use it to modulate something else, and you can create again cool sounds. That's, the point. So, now again, you can use LFOs, you can use functions, random, pretty much, and even the sequencer. You can use the sequencer, which is, great. Now, I want to show you something else because maybe you don't know, and maybe you're starting with synthesis and you don't know how this works. You have mono, and then you have legato, and then you have poly. What's the difference? If I go to mono and I play a key, it's re-triggering. Every time I play, is re-triggering it. But if I go to legato, every time I play it is re-triggering. Every time I go to poly, it's doing the same thing. So what's the difference? Well, this depends on the voices and, what you do with this LFO. I'm gonna maybe not do it on the filter. Just gonna remove it from the filter. And I'm gonna be using this LFO to modulate the pitch. There you go. So now, I'm using the poly keyboard. Remember this, we are using 8 voices. So every time I play a new key, I want you to take a look at the spectrum. Notice that the voices are not grooving in the same fashion. Every voice, every new key I press, and you know what? I'm going to be going to the keyboard and show you that every time I play a new key, it's going to move in a different fashion. So they are not in sync. There you go. Why they are not in sync? It is because it's poly. The LFO, it's polyphonic. Each voice, each key I'm playing has it follows its own version of the LFO, and they are not in sync. That's why it's poly. Now, if I go to the options, the reset source, and I use mono, and I do the same thing than before, now, since it's mono, one single instruction, all of the voices will follow one single LFO. Right? So they are all moving and grooving the same fashion. Now then you have the legato keyboard. If I play a key, and this is, maybe you don't know what legato is. If I play a key and hold it, and then I play a new key like this, that's going to be legato. If I release the keys and I play like this, nothing is going to happen. So if I go to the LFO, I'm going to play or press and hold the key. And I'm holding a key right now. If I play a new one, I'm playing it. Maybe you can hear it. It's not re-triggering the LFO because I'm holding a key. But if I release that key I'm holding and I play keys without holding or playing in legato mode, it will re-trigger the LFO. That's what it means. If I don't want to re-trigger the LFO, well, I'm going to need to hold the key to avoid re-triggering the LFO. And this works the same way with the play modes that you have right here. It works the same way when you are using an envelope It's just, the same idea. Okay, so now it's time to talk about the functions. I'm back on an init patch, and what I want to do, I want to use the functions to random modulation, and I guess I'm gonna be doing it on the cutoff. So if I map the cutoff to the function number 1, whatever is that we have on this function will run the modulation. Super simple. Now you have 3 functions, and the point right here of a function is that you can click and just create a modulation. How cool is that? Now you can, of course, click and create multiple points, and by default, this will just work as an LFO. So as you can click and draw the points, and I'm just pressing and holding a key to generate this, as you can see right here. You can double click the points just to delete them, or if you right click and you hold it, that is, I get the delete icon, I can go do like this and just, delete all the points at once. If you go here, you can adjust the different curves of each point. There you go, just click and drag. And maybe on this one, I'm gonna need to do something like that. And you can just create different curves. Cool. Now, when you select a point at the right side, it will tell you on which point you are, the time, and the level. And you can use these options to navigate through the points and to fine-tune whatever value that you have right here. Now then at the bottom, you see something that says regen amp. This what will do, it will scale or just modify the amplitude of the different points. If I go up, notice it's just changing the amplitude. So just like by using this, you can create or just, kind of flip the amplitude of your different points. But you also have the scale. Right now, it's by default it's on 1, but you can scale down your points and make your envelope or function a little bit less aggressive. If I go the other way, it's going to invert the envelope or the function in this case, which is, just a multi-point envelope. Cool, right? Another thing you can do is magnetize. If I disable this, when I click a point, it's not syncing to the lines or to the grid that I have at the back. But if you want to sync it, you can enable magnetize, enable sync, or just, snap to the grid. Another thing that you can do, you can draw. Right now, we need to click a point to do something, but you can go to maybe this mode, and you can drag it, and just, create a points like this. You also have this saw. Right now we are just creating kind of up and down motions, but you can do a saw up or you can do a saw down. I'm still, maybe doing all of this every time that you create a patch. Super useful, but it will be cool to save it, and you can, but you also have templates. I can go here and just, get a different template. And if I want to, maybe this one, and if I want to copy to some of the other functions, we can do so. And also you can save your function as something so you can, reuse it later. Super useful. Having a function or a multi-point type of envelope, it's something, great on this type of synthesizer where we can, do whatever we want. Now we're going to talk about the retrigger source, but then you have this section. So you can use this function as an LFO, which means that if I play a key, it will constantly go, just like an LFO. But if I go to envelope, now it will work as an envelope. And right here, I can draw the envelope that I want. And notice that right here, it says S. So the S means that this is the sustain. So I'm gonna be adding the sustain right here, maybe add a couple points. And if I want to make this one the sustain, I just need to double click it, and now that one is sustain. It is the sustain. Now this means that when the envelope goes, and as soon as I play it, it goes, and it will get stuck right here because it's an envelope now, sustaining at this point. And then and only then, when I release it, it will go down and just finish the function. So one thing again that you need to be aware of that if you're on envelope, it will run the modulation once, and you need to take a look right here at the filter. I play it, it will run the modulation, and when I release it, it will die and it will not run again. Still, you can go right here and toggle the loop on, and if I play it, now it will of course loop. And you can select the loop points or whatever it is that you want to loop. So if I play it, let's say that at the beginning it will do this, but then when it loops, it's gonna get stuck right here and loop the points. And you can select where to start and where to end in terms of points. Now, right now it's going really fast. Right here, the rate will affect whatever it is that you do. So if I go up in rate, it's gonna be much faster. But if I go down, it's gonna be much slower. So anything that you do right here, the rate will affect it. If I go to sync, we can do sync and we can do hertz, and the usual one, the usual options at this point. Now by default, it's unipolar, so it will only go up, but I can make it bipolar. And now we'll go up and down. Now, we already talked about this on the LFO section. It's going up and down. And again, this is the envelope. What happens if I go to the LFO? You have a couple more options right here. And I'm gonna make it unipolar. So right now it's loop, so it means that it's an LFO. It will play and repeat and loop. But I can make it one shot. This means that it will run only once. So almost like an envelope. And this one, it means, and notice that when I go right here, it will turn off the retrigger source. To show you the retrigger source. This means that now this LFO, it's free running. Remember that we already have that function right here on the LFO free running? It means that it will not restart when I play a key. So it doesn't matter when I play a key, it will just go free running. And this takes us to the retrigger source. Just like the LFO, we can choose what will retrigger this function. And we can use maybe a different function, or maybe have an LFO retrigger this this function. So I'm using the LFO1. If I go up on the LFO1, is retriggering the function. Right. Same as before. Now, once you understand or you just learn a few sections, some of the other sections of this synthesizer are just pretty much the same. And that's the function. How easy was that? Right, so it's super simple. The thing is that the functions are very simple to understand, but the thing is that when you want to do something, you need to go to work right here. You need to create your function and draw whatever it is that you want, and just hear and test. And that's what takes time. Everything else is just very simple to understand, but it just takes a little bit of time to draw your own functions and get something cool. And this is the tool that you would use to create, really cool, interesting motions that you cannot create with the LFO. That's pretty much how it works. Alright, so that's going to be the functions. You have 3 of the functions, and as you can see, you have a pattern right here. 3 LFOs, 3 envelopes, 3 functions, 3 randoms, 3 combinates, and then you have 4 different macros. Back to a default patch. Now we need to talk about the random, and these ones are very simple. You don't have a lot in terms of random, and the random doesn't mean that it will be always random. You don't get 3 different ones. You have 3 options. If I go right here and select touring on all of them, you will have the same random function. I'm going to start with 1. I'm going to go to random and assign it to the cutoff frequencies of the 1. And I'm going to get out, and we can see how it's going right here. And maybe I'm going to go to a saw. Yeah, something like that. So now the touring, and for now I'm going to go to free running. I'm going to tell you why in a minute. So the touring, it's kind of a random type of instruction. You have the rate, which means how fast it's going to go. If I go down, it will generate a new instruction with a new modulation. Now the length decides how long it is. I'm going to go to something faster so we can really hear this. I'm going to add a little bit of resonance and a little bit of reverb. If I go down in length, notice that it's longer. They have kind of a longer type of steps, and they're up and down. So as I go length up, it means how many steps you can have within each. So now, we have something a little bit more random. Still, the touring is more like a sequence. If I go to the left side on the flip, I want you to pay attention and notice that there's a pattern right here. It doesn't work as random. We don't have a random pattern. If it's just a pattern. If I go to 50%, get closer to 50%, now it's going to be a little bit more random. Right? So we can hear that it's random. It's not like a sequence. If I go to the other side, it's almost like going to 0%, but it's just going to flip it. That's why it's called flip. And now we have a sequence. That is it. We have a clear, very recognizable pattern. On the other way, if I go to 0, it's just down and up, down and up. The other one is down, up, and down. And all of this, again, it's something that you need to go right here, check the length. If you want more length, which means pretty much more steps, more values, or you want less values on your sequence, because this is like a sequence. Now then you have the retrigger source. I'm going to go to defaults on the length and on the rate. And I'm going to go to, instead of free running, I'm going to use the poly keyboard. Now, if I do something like that, or maybe, you know what, I'm going to go to the LFO and just make it pretty fast. I'm going to go here, and instead of using the poly, which is our keyboard, I'm going to be using the LFO. Notice that the instruction changes. It's like re-triggering every time that the LFO says so, because it's, super fast. If I go faster, it will affect the tuning, which is the steps that we generate. So the rate matters, but also the re-trigger source. Like I said before, the tuning, it's like a random. It is a random, but it can also work as a sequence, as a way of sequence. Now you still have a much powerful sequencer right here, but this one it's cool, it's useful. Now then I'm gonna be going to the sample and hold, and this is the one that it's a little bit more, random. So how a sample and hold works is that it's called sample and hold because it will take a sample from a source and it will just hold it, run the transition or the modulation, and then it will take a new sample. Sample and hold needs to take the sample from a source, right? It could be, an oscillator, it could be whatever, a drum sequence, or maybe a drum loop, whatever, it doesn't matter. In this case, it's going to be the white noise. This is what you get by default. But you can choose some other, source. Usually, it's white noise. Why? Well, because white noise is an unpredictable sound source. That's why you get this random type of behavior. It's unpredictable. That's noise. And then when you take the sample, it needs to decide how fast or when to take the sample. And right now, its retrigger source is LFO. No, I'm gonna go to clock. So it needs a clock. It needs to know when to take the sample. So if I use clock, it's gonna enable the rate. The rate, it will decide how fast or when to take the sample. And depending on the white noise or the source, it will be on a different place. That's why you get this random type of behavior or modulation. If you do less or you go down, and you can even you can even go to hertz, sync it, usual options. I'm gonna go to hertz. If I go up, it will be faster, but notice that this is the real random, not the touring one. Now, when you do this, when you use the rate or any other source, you can use the rise and the fall, which means that it will slew the start and the end. Notice that now the instruction is super smooth. It's not super harsh like this. If I do rise, it will just smooth the rise and not the fall. And if I do fall, it will just smooth the fall. And this will, result on a completely different type of, modulation. You can link both controls, and now when you go up in rise, it will go up in fall. Then you have the binary, and this is the last one. And the binary, as you could guess, is going to be 0 and then 1. It's just going to be down or it's going to be up. You have the probability, which it means that, if it's going to go up or it's going to go down, right? It's the probability. So this is more like a step type of thing. And maybe it's too aggressive. I'm going to go down. If I go all the way down to 0, you have 0 chance that you will be generating any downs or up. So if I go up, we have 50% chance. If I go up, notice that we have something a lot more steady. So it will always be playing. Remember that this will generate a 0 and a 1. So if I go to 50%, it's 50-50 that it's going to be up or it's going to be down. So you have something a little bit more usable right here. If I go up, some of them is going to be the ups or downs are going to be, or zeros and ones are going to be really long. And again, all this will just depends on what you want to do. For now, I'm going to go to 50%. Of course, you have the rate, so go up on rate. And I'm holding a key, right? I'm playing and holding a key. It's going to affect, it's going to be much faster. And of course, you can use sync, straight, and whatever. I'm going to use hertz. And then you have this one. So let me maybe go here and to something a little bit slower. So right now, this one is all the way down. So when I play a key and hold it, maybe I'm going to go faster. It's going to be up and again, or it's going to be down. So this one is the chance that the whatever step that currently played is going to stay up. So if I go up, notice that the transitions are just longer. The zeros or ones are just longer. Super long, and then super up. So this is like the chance that it's going to be super long. If I go all the way up, it's going to stay like that. If I go down, you have something a little bit, let's say faster. And again, this is not my favorite. And you can even go right here and just use free running, so you don't have a retrigger source. I cannot say that this one is my favorite. I think the sample and hold and the touring are just pretty good in comparison. Alright, so this is the random. Now we need to talk about the final one, which is going to be the combinate. Okay, so now it's time to talk about the combinate. I'm going to go back to a default patch and I'm going to go right here at the bottom. We don't need to do anything. Still, I'm going to be maybe doing something or mapping this modulator to something, and I'm going to do it to the cutoff right here. I'm going to maybe go up. You have 3 slots, just like, everything else. And if you go to the type, you have a lot of different types. The point of combinate is to combinate 2 sources, apply a type, and then get something else in return. And since you have a lot of types, there is a lot of things that you can do. Now, most of them, if I go to the first one, which is sum, you have a source and you have a mod. And if I go to diff, you get the same thing. And if you go to multiply and so on and on and on, you get, always source and mod. And on some of them, when you get to the lag, you have a source, just the source. Same with threshold and same with the offset and then the remap. So let's start with sum, and this is again pretty simple. We need a source. In this case, I'm going to be using the LFO number 1. So I'm going to go to 1 and I'm going to select the LFO 1. So this is going to be the source. The amount needs to be all the way down. And then I need something that modulates this. I need a modulation. So I'm going to use the LFO 2, but this one's, notice that they are the same. I'm going to go to LFO 2 and I'm going to make it a square and I'm going to maybe make it faster. Right? We have something like that. So we have something different. They are completely different. So when I go up on the amount, the square is going to modify the source. And now we get a combination between a sine wave and just a pulse. If I keep going up, of course, it's going to be more aggressive. Oh, I guess the mapping was wrong. It was on the 2. I'm going to do it on the 1. I'm going to go over here. And now what we get is something like this. We don't even need to use audio, you just need to see the waveform and you see what you are getting in return. So this is again what the combinate will do. And right here, it will give you the formula is sources plus and then mod by amount. So all of them, all the other types will do something like this. If I go to difference, it's going to sound pretty much the same, but it's inverted. So it's doing the opposite. Instead of summing, it's just, subtracting. That's the plan. Now, the other ones, of course, are going to be different. If I do multiply, this is what you get in return. And it will be a different type of modulation. You get a different shape. And again, if I go back to the amount, it's just going to be the sine wave. If I go full, you get a very cool modulation. And it always depends, of course, on what you're using as a source and as a mod. You could use maybe something random on the LFO, so you can get, something more random-ish. And not a pattern like now. And if I go to divide, again, same idea. That is that we can see the square and the sine wave pattern. Then we have crossfade. This one is a little bit different because we can go all the way down and it's going to be the sine wave, but if I go all the way up, it's going to be the LFO2, which is the square. So right here we can crossfade between both. That's the plan. And notice that you get the plus right here. It's because you can modulate this and, get something unusual. Now all the types that you get right here are very modular. You get it on modular synthesis, just, pretty common for that. But it's nice that we get it right here. Then you have the lag. And as you can see, the lag, it just does nothing. So in this case, if I move it, you can see that it's doing something to the sine wave. But this works just like the LFO option where you have the smooth. Well, this is the same idea. It's going to smooth the hard edges. That's the lag. And again, this is one of the main inputs that you get on a modular synthesizer. What do you get next? Well, then you get the threshold and the offset and the remap, and these ones are just a little bit different. In this case, the threshold is going to be the max between the source and the threshold. I'm going to do LFO1 for now, and we can see that, we have a sine wave, but it's just like chopped, so we only see the positive of the sine wave. So if I go up, notice that it's just like offsetting it. But we can see only the upper part of the waveform. Same if I go to LFO2, which is the square, we see the upper part. And then if we go up, we can reshape it like this. Now then, if I go to and I'm going to go back maybe to the LFO1, I go to the offset. And notice that the icon right here, the drawing, will kind of show you what it will do. We only see the positive. And the other one's a little bit different. If I go to offset, now we see the full thing. It's not like the threshold where we only see the positive, right? So that's the main difference. But now if I keep moving up in amount, it's like offsetting, the negative towards to the positive. At some point, you are going to be getting a sine wave only on the opposites, on the positive side. If you do too much, at some point, you're going to be like getting nothing. If I go to LFO2, we can, see this. Maybe we want more on the positive, less on the negative. Well, we can do it with offset because we are offsetting, right? Now I'm going to go back to the one, and then I'm going to be going to remap. And this one, it's a little bit different from the other ones. It follows the same rules than the offset and the threshold. Even, has the same icon than offset. So the remap is like the offset and the threshold on one function, but we can adjust the curve and get something else in return. For example, if I want to mimic the offset, I will go to this line. I'm gonna adjust it, put it right here at center, and the other one is gonna be right here, all the way at the top. And if I play it and I go up in amount, what we are doing, we are offsetting the waveform to the positive side. And now we get this sine wave on the positive. So we are doing the same thing that we did with the offset. Or maybe I want to get it to the negative, which is something that we cannot do with the offset. Well, we can with this one. We just need to go to the negative. If I go down and I go all maybe 50% and keep going up, now it's going to offset it to the negative side. Cool, right? So again, and right here you can create whatever waveform or curve that you want. I could do an M or something like that, and notice that it will reshape the source to whatever we have right here. And of course you can modulate the amount just to get something else. Right? So super easy and super fun. So I would use the Combinate, whatever it is that you get right here, to get some uncommon pattern or some type of modulation that maybe I cannot get with the functions or the random or the LFO. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to a default patch, and now I'm gonna be going to the effects, and then I guess we are gonna finish with the macros. So the effects are pretty simple. You have two effects buses or slots. You have the A right here at the top, and then you have the B. And what you can do right here on each of the slots is that you can load 3 different effects. You can turn on the effects just like this, and you can even turn off the, the buses right here, with the on button. I know that all of this is obvious, and you can, of course, select a different type. You can copy to maybe a different slot, or you can, select a preset, and you can even save a preset, which is, again, fantastic. Okay, so what if you want to maybe delete this one? Well, you just go to none and it's gone. What if you want to put the delay, whatever you have right here? Do you need to save the preset and then go here, just load a delay and load that preset? No, you can just drag and drop and it will just take you there. Now, what if you have something on here, right? Maybe not a tape echo, maybe a chorus, something like that. And maybe you want the chorus to go to delay. Well, you can drag it and it will swap the effects slots. Like I said before, I'm not going to go through each of all the effects, but if you want for me to film a video, to make a video showing you all the different effects, just like I'm doing right now with with engines and everything else on this synthesizer, if you want this, the effects, let me know down in the comments, and I can just make a video for you showing you all the different effects. But right here, what I see in forums and the web, because I do some research before recording this guide, the most confusing part is the routing. Most people are really confused about the routing that you get here. So I'm going to just delete this effects because we don't need it. We have a reverb on the aux. I'm going to just go and delete it. And again, same thing here. So in total, you have 6 effects divided on the A and the B. Whatever that you create on the synth will go to the effects. And it will be going by default to the A, and then it's going to go to the B. And this is why the insert really matters right here. You have the A and an arrow. It says that whatever you put right here, if you put 3 different effects, it will flow that sound and it will go to the B slot. And then this is what's going to get out. So if I have maybe a delay or, I don't know, a chorus, and then I have a distortion on the A, whatever that comes out from the A, it will go to the B. So maybe on the B, I can go right here and just add a reverb. And this is the default configuration. A, whatever you generate on the A, will flow to the B and then it will come out. But it doesn't have to be that way. If you go here, you can see that you can do A to B, or you can do B to A, which means that the B, it will process whatever it is that you want, and then it will go to the A, so it's the same but backwards. And then you have A and B, and this one, it's completely different from the other one. So what this does is that you can process the sound that goes out of your synthesizer. It will get processed by the effects slot A, and it will also get processed by the B, and at the end, it will blend both signals together. Just like the filters. If we go to the filter right now, we know that the 1 goes to the 2, but you can change the routings. You can go all the way up, and now the filter 1 is going to do something, then the filter 2 is going to do something else, and then they will sum together. Well, this is the same thing. The sound will flow into the A and to the B, and then at the end, both will be mixed together. So if you think about this, if you go to A and B, it's like chaining pedals. Like if you have guitar pedals, let's say, This is like that. The chorus will go into the distortion into the slot 3, and then it will go to the B, and and this just the same way. But this, the A and B, is like having 2 different pedal boards. The A is going to be one, and then the B is going to be a different one. And then at the end, it will go to your PA system, and you will blend both together. What is the purpose of just doing something like this? Okay, so I'm going to go to none, and I'm going to go to A. And let's say that right here, you have something like maybe, I don't know, a distortion and a reverb. Just going to go and say distortion, and then we have a reverb. Just to give you an example. Then I'm going to go to the B, and on the B, what you have is a delay. So you want to process both signals. Remember, I'm using the parallel, right? So if I play something, whatever, and maybe I'm going to be adding a little bit more teeth. There we go. The sound will go to the A, it will get distorted, and then on top, you're going to add the reverb to that distorted sound. But you're adding reverb to the distorted one. Now, this sound, distorted and reverb, could go to the B, but instead of doing that, the B is processing not what comes out from the A, which is distorted and reverb. It comes out clean. That's why you have the send. Notice that if I go down on the A, what we get is the delay. And if I turn off the A, we can hear that we don't have a reverb and we don't have a distortion. If I go to the A and I turn it on and I go up, and I'm doing this just to show you, we get the distortion and the reverb. And the point is that now this signal, the signal path, it's clean, and the other one, it's clean as well. We are not sending the distortion and reverb to the delay. That's just going to make it a big mess. So we are sending the clean signal to the B and the clean signal to the A, so we can treat them and blend them with the A and the B separately and get something a little bit more cleaner. If I go to the A and the B, now distortion and reverb are flowing into the delay, and that is just much dense. It just sounds a little bit more dirty. And that's the main point. That's why would you do it. Now, there's no right or wrong right here. It depends on how you want the effects to be applied. Then on the other side, you have the aux channel. So this is like your DAW. When you create an effects track and then you send to that effects track or a bus, well, you send an amount that will be processed by something. So you send it to a different channel. Well, this is the same thing. Right here, you can decide how much you want to send. And this is the final volume, whatever comes out from the aux channel. And why do you get this? Well, it's the same idea than before. Maybe we are using A to the B, so everything that flows right here will get processed. And for now, let me just remove the delay. I'm going to add something like, I don't know, flanger, I guess. If I play it, it's going to sound like that. And if I maybe go here, I'm going to add a crusher, something like that. So now, whatever that comes out from the A and the B will be sent to the aux channel. So now I can go right here and I can maybe do a reverb, and now I can process with a parallel channel or aux track with the different effects, maybe a reverb or whatever it is that you want. But the important part right here is going to be this one, this option. It says post effects, or if it's off, it means that it's pre-effects. I'm going to go all the way down on the A, and I'm going to go all the way down on the B, and I'm talking about the volume. If I play something, we can hear the reverb. Even if I make it 50%, we can hear the reverb. We are only sending, and then we are hearing the return, which is the sound going into the aux, and then processed by reverb and going out. So this is pre-effects, which means that the signal that goes before the effects is being routed to the aux in parallel. It's being processed by the reverb and then coming out. So this is why this is all the way down, and it can still play and hear that my sound, which is whatever we have right here, is being processed by the reverb. If I do post effects and the volume of this is all the way down, I'm going to enable now. I'm playing right now, and as you can see, I'm just playing something on my keyboard and nothing comes out because this aux channel, it's awaiting for some sound from the A and the B to process with the whatever it is that you want right here. So if you think about this now, this works like an A to the B to the C almost. So if I add something from the A and something from the B, now we are getting it. Now, the catch is that this is post effects. It means that it will process whatever that comes out from the A and the B. It means that it already has a distortion, a bit crusher, and a flanger, and then you're sending the whatever it is that you do to the reverb. If you do pre-effects, you're sending whatever that goes before you apply these effects. And then at the end, the inserts, the A and the B, and the aux will blend and mixed together, and they will go out. And this is why you have the levels of the A and the B and the return, so you can, blend in the levels and, just mix it. That's pretty much it. And it's the same purpose we discussed with the parallel. This is a little bit cleaner if you use it in pre-effects, because you're sending the unprocessed signal to this aux track, and then you're processing that instead of processing the distorted, bit crushed flanger sound. And like I said before, the purpose of the aux, it's almost the same that maybe working with the parallel. Right now, instead of going from the A to the B to the aux, you are sending the dry, clean signal to the aux, so you can process with something, and then you can blend it at the end with the A and the B. So you get something a little bit more cleaner than the other one, the other option, which is going to be post effects, sending the distorted, bit crushed, and flangy sound to the aux track. Okay, so the last thing that we need to discuss, and in this case, I'm going to go back to default, is going to be the macros. We never discussed the macros. The macros are just like highly important. And if you want to easily control or expand a patch, well, you need to use the macros. One of the most common examples, and I'm going to be maybe doing something like that, and I'm going to send some level. I'm not adding anything to, maybe, there you go, something like that. So what I want to do, and this is one of the most common examples that you get even with the patches that you get from Arturia. You can maybe make something a little bit more plucky. Let's say I want something short, no sustain, and no release. So now I have something super plucky. But maybe I can go to my macro and I'm going to go here and assign it, and I'm going to go decay up, and I'm going to add more sustain, and I'm going to make it big on the release. So now we go from plucky to more synth keys. And that's the point with this. This is one of the most common examples. You change your envelopes from something to something completely different, and now you have two different patches on just one single patch. Another very common example is just using the effects. Right here, I guess, is using a reverb and a delay. I'm going to be using, a bit crusher. It doesn't matter. But, I want to control it with the effects. So I'm going to be going to the dry and the wet. Maybe if I go up, I'm going to be doing 50 of the delay. I'm going to do a little bit of bit crush. And at this, and maybe on the B, I'm going to be doing a super unison. This is all the way down. I'm going to map this. And now we are going from something maybe super clean to something a little bit longer. If I go up, we add wet, or we add the effects. If just going down, we remove the effects, but you can decide the intensity of the effects. That's why when you make patches, even if it's at the beginning or at the end, take your time and add the macros just to make the patch a little bit more versatile. And okay, so I guess we are done with this. We just covered pretty much everything. We didn't cover the sequencer. I'm going to be doing this on a different video. At the bottom, when you go to the keyboard, we already talked about the velocity after touching keyboard. You have the voice settings, which is it's going to be how it's going to steal the notes. At the bottom, you have the play mode, which you can select up to 32. Remember, more polyphony, more notes will take a lot more CPU. You have your play settings, which is going to be the hold. If I select hold and I play a key, it's going to hold it for me, right? So yeah, once you click the hold, uncheck the hold, it's gonna forget that key. Then you have the glide time, which is gonna be the glide, and you can decide how you want it to glide. If I play again something, it's always gliding. It doesn't matter if I play a key and I'm not holding a different key, it will always glide by this amount. But if I click this, now it's not going to be always, this means that you need to do legato in order to get it to glide. So if I play a key, notice that I'm not getting the glide. I am not getting the glide. I can only get the glide when I press a key and I hold it. So now I need to play the legato style. Right, so that's what legato means in this case, with the glide. And then, of course, you have the pitch bend. I guess we already talked about this. And always remember that you can, of course, go to your sounds. You can store them. You can search them. Again, I guess this video is way too long, and this is just pretty obvious. So this is the preset section, and you can tag them. You can add the favorites. It actually works pretty good. A lot more usable than other, synthesizers. I'm not going to give names. And then you have the settings where you can select the MIDI channel. You can, of course, map the MIDI. You can learn and map to maybe your controller. And then you have some tutorials, but I guess, after watching all of this, you just don't need it. And I'm going to give you my conclusion because, why not? This video, it's already way too long. So I guess it doesn't matter. So I'm guessing, because I'm recording this, I don't know how much time this video is going to take, how long the video is going to be. I think it's going to be over 2 hours. And I'm recording this deep dive, which is a course on one single video, on different days. This is the third day. It takes a long time. So it's a pretty long and complete synthesizer. And you would use this is like the serum, or in this case, well, pigments. Then you have what else? You have if I have to name the native instruments one, well, I guess that's the massive one. And then you have the minimal audio current. I guess from Yuhi, you have the Diva. So you have all these synthesizers that are workhorses, that you can use them for pretty much everything. Of course, if you want an analog type of synthesizer or emulation, you will go to that emulation. That nothing is going to replace that. But the synthesizer is the one that you grab and you use it to do pretty much everything that you need to do. But yeah, it's just a very complete synthesizer. You can do whatever it is that you want. And on every update, because I guess we are on the version number 5, they add something new to the plugin, to the synthesizer, which just makes it even better. So if you're looking for a workhorse type of synthesizer, well, this is it, I guess. This is just the best, or maybe the second best. Okay, so I will upload a new video to this channel, just showing you the sequencer, because the sequencer can do a lot. And if you liked all of this and you learned something new, remember to like and subscribe. And this channel is supported by viewers only. Arturia is not supporting this video, of course. So if you want to buy me a coffee to say thanks and help the channel keep going on, you can. You have links at the description for PayPal, YouTube thanks, and Patreon.